There are people who were never meant to become heroes, yet fate forces them to be. And Wang Lin is one of them. Born into an ordinary family, he carried a simple wish in his heart to cultivate immortality and repay his parents' kindness. But the world is never that kind. No talent, no background, no guidance, everything seemed to whisper to him, the path of cultivation is not for you. Yet in the midst of that hopelessness, Wang Lin chose something that very few have the courage to do. He kept going. He walked forward with stubbornness. He walked forward with longing. He walked forward with everything left in his resilient heart. A strange opportunity came to him, opening a path of cultivation drenched in blood and loneliness. There, every improvement required a sacrifice. Every step forward meant losing something precious. To grow stronger, he had to endure 100 times more than ordinary people. Renegade Immortal is the tale of a man who never submits. A man willing to defy the heavens, defy fate, and defy the world just to protect what his heart refuses to let go. This is not merely an immortal cultivation story. This is the journey of a soul so powerful that even eternity must bow. And today, I invite you to step into that journey, the journey of Wang Lin, the man who walks against the will of heaven to find the answer meant for himself. Why is that? The old man picked up the wine gourd, poured out the last drops, then licked his lips and said, "The ancient immortal realm has been shattered into many small pieces. The laws of heaven and earth within it are completely chaotic. That's the decisive factor. If a wave of late-stage god transformation realm power were to appear inside, some of the fragments of the immortal realm would immediately collapse. Of course, depending on the size of the fragments of the immortal realm, there are still some places that can withstand higher-level power fluctuations. Therefore, if it's a cultivator with profound cultivation, after entering, unless they want to commit suicide, they will limit their power fluctuations to the god transformation realm." Wang Lin was silent, many questions in his heart. After a long, he finally looked up at the old man and said, "Senior, you've come to visit so late at night. I'm afraid it's not just to tell me this, is it?" The old man chuckled. There was a hint of wickedness in his smile as he said, "Young man, I've come here to tell you that I must leave. Before I go, you must carve a wooden statue for me. I'll give it to Zikui of Hong Fenlo, so that when she remembers me, she can use it as a memento. Oh, a handsome and dashing man like me only exists in legends, of course. Many beautiful women will yearn for me." After saying this, he feigned a wistful expression, but a smug look was hard to conceal on his face, and he kept glancing at Wang Lin. Clearly, he was waiting for Wang Lin's praise. Wang Lin remained silent for a long time, then picked up a piece of wood. He formed a knife with his fingers and quickly carved on the wood surface. But just as he had finished carving the overall picture, the old man let out a soft snort, somewhat displeased, and said, "No need for clothes." Wang Lin's finger paused, then he gave a wry smile. After hesitating for a moment, he gently stroked the surface of the wooden block with his right hand, then started carving again from scratch. This time, his fingers moved like the wind. Before long, a gaunt old man, bony and resembling a monkey, was carved into a statue. Except for the violent, indiscriminate slaughter depicted in the wooden statue, everything else was fundamentally identical to the old man, giving a lifelike appearance. Even the wrinkles on his face were indistinguishable. The old man immediately grabbed it, holding it in his hand and examining it for a long time, his eyebrows furrowing more and more. Finally, he glared and said, "What does this mean?" "It doesn't look like me, not at all. Do you think I look like this?" "You didn't carve me, but a monkey. Do you know what a monkey is?" After speaking, the old man tossed the wooden statue aside, then stared intently at Wang Lin, saying clearly, word by word, "It's not the same." This time, the old man's eyes weren't playful, but serious. There was even a hint of madness in them. Wang Lin immediately noticed the anomaly. The spiritual energy in the heavens and earth seemed to be changing according to some kind of pattern. A sudden sense of danger arose in his heart. For decades, Wang Lin had been speculating about the old man's cultivation level. But now, he raised his opinion of the old man's cultivation. He looked at the old man and picked up a piece of wood. This time, his right hand swung up like the wind, twice as fast as before. Finally, a statue of a handsome, dashing, and carefree man was completed, especially the sparkling, intelligent eyes. Calling him a peerless beauty wouldn't be any exaggeration. However, the old man's image was vastly different. Anyone who wasn't blind could tell from this that the wooden statue and the old man were definitely not the same person. The statue, freshly carved, was snatched up by the old man. He stared at it, his eyes shining, and laughed heartily, saying, "That's right, this is me, good, very similar. Kid, you carved it excellently. I'll leave that straw hat magic weapon for you to use for a while." The old man looked at the wooden statue with delight. After tucking it into his chest, he looked at Wang Lin admiringly and said, "Just keep carving like this from now on. It must be accurate. Right, your statue. Although still lacking in some aspects compared to my current likeness, the difference isn't significant and can be overlooked. Moreover, this statue looks quite similar to me when I was young." After saying this, the old man straightened up, about to leave, but suddenly turned back and said, "There are 99 more wooden statues. Save them for when you reach the god transformation stage. But don't forget, no matter where you run, I, your old man, can find you." Watching the eccentric old man leave, Wang Lin picked up the first statue he had carved, glanced at it, and smiled. Then, he casually placed it on the cabinet. Wang Lin didn't want to get involved in the affairs of the immortal sex at this time. Unless he reached the god transformation realm, there was no hope of going. It was still too early to talk about it. Regarding the war between the Four-Sect Alliance and the Snow Region cultivators, Wang Lin thought for a while and decided not to participate. This matter involved a very wide scope. Any slight mistake would have serious consequences. Therefore, Wang Lin's life returned to its peaceful state. The heavy snowfall across the entire Four-Sect Alliance only gradually subsided a month later. The light of the cultivators' magic artifacts in the sky became even more frequent. Every now and then, a cultivator could be seen seemingly repairing something. Wang Lin observed for a while, then confirmed that these cultivators were forming a formation. The formation was arranged in the air, serving to prevent snow from falling. At the same time, besides those who were busy with the formation in the sky, a large number of cultivators from various sects and cultivation families had begun to enter the cities and plains. Their job was to clear the snow. Using magical power to clear the snow was very ineffective. Snowflakes are strangely sensitive to fluctuations in magical power. Therefore, these cultivators had to use their bodies, which hadn't been used so vigorously in a long time, to begin clearing the snow. If the cultivators were acting, ordinary people naturally wouldn't be idle either. The ordinary emperors in the territory of the Four-Sect Alliance had clearly received the orders of the immortal elders. Therefore, a large number of mortal soldiers began to rush out to clear the snow. Because the territory of the Four-Sect Alliance was vast, not only the mortal army had to clear the snow, but even the people in all the cities were forced to participate. Dan Niu was among them. Even the elderly, in their twilight years, couldn't escape this task. But since the king, who still respected him, had given the order, no one dared to disturb Wang Lin. The snow clearing work continued for several months. Dan Niu was taken to the south. All the cities in the territory of the Four-Sect Alliance were completely silent. Except for a few people of high status, everyone was forced to go to the border to clear the snow. During this snow clearing operation, regardless of whether they were women or children, they were also forced to go. Before Dan Niu left, Wang Lin, out of affection for him of over 30 years, gave him a small carved wooden plaque to wear for protection against misfortune. He also gave his wife a similar piece of wood. The purpose of the wooden planks was to radiate warmth to prevent the body from freezing. This was originally a battle phase for cultivators, and ordinary people in the Four-Sect Alliance were the first to suffer. But ordinary people didn't even know the reason for the snowfall. They simply didn't want their homeland to suffer from the snow, so they had to brave the relentless snowstorm. Throughout the Four-Sect Alliance, snow piled up into massive mountains. All the snow was stacked on these mountains. Then, some cultivators used their divine powers to manipulate it, causing the height to gradually increase. All the crops in the fields were covered in snow, making it impossible to harvest a single grain. Every day, many ordinary people froze to death. Every day, some houses collapsed under the snow. This was a disaster. One morning, Wang Lin went out of his shop and saw that although the snow on the ground had been cleared, snowflakes were still falling on the road. The wind and snow in the sky had lessened somewhat, but they were still present. A few days ago, Chu Weitai used the jade slip again. His purpose was none other than to invite Wang Lin to join the Four-Sex Alliance. He then revealed all the ongoing actions and some shocking secrets of the Four-Sex Alliance in recent days. After the nationwide snow clearing, the snow accumulation in the Four-Sex Alliance territory had significantly decreased. However, it had created many snow-capped mountains that pierced the clouds. Aside from that, all the cultivators in the territory who received the invitation from the Four-Sex Alliance enthusiastically joined to fight against the upcoming Great War. But Chuwitai also raised a point of doubt. According to the customs of the snow region cultivators of the past, they would absolutely not do something like this, causing continuous snowfall for several months. Normally, they would only let the snow fall for 10 days before attacking. This was because during battles, cultivators tried to restrain themselves and not disturb mortals, as this was a rule of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. But now, 4 months have passed, and the snowstorm in the sky hasn't lessened at all. It's simply being concealed by a formation. There's only one explanation for this phenomenon. Chuwitai, anxiously recounting it from the Jade Slip, told him that the cultivators of the snow region wanted to destroy the very foundations of the Four-Sex Alliance, waging a war of annihilation. Wars of annihilation on the Vermilion Bird Star are rare, especially with the intervention of the 6th-level cultivation nation, the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. However, such wars aren't unprecedented. Ancient texts of the Four-Sex Alliance record a total of 4 wars of annihilation on the Vermilion Bird Star. 3 of these wars occurred in 4th-level cultivation nations, and 1 in a 5th-level cultivation nation. But there were no exceptions. Whenever there was a war of annihilation, the shadow of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom was always lurking behind it. In other words, this event might be because the snow region cultivators didn't dare use all sorts of methods to provoke the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, but instead secretly waged a war of annihilation. After Chuwitai's worried analysis, Wang Lin pondered for a long time. The Four-Sect Alliance wasn't his hometown, but he had lived on the streets of this capital city for over 30 years. At this moment, he stood outside the shop, watching the snowflakes fall, and sighed softly. Chuwitai's final words through the Jade Slip were, to investigate the Snow Region Kingdom's actions this time. Did they truly have an attitude of annihilation? The Four-Sect Alliance had dispatched several groups of cultivators, simultaneously going to several surrounding 4th-level cultivation kingdoms to seek allies. At the same time, they also went to the 5th-level cultivation kingdoms they were affiliated with to seek reinforcements. The last group went to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom to investigate the truth. On the day the Jade Slip was issued, all 3 groups, except for the one that went to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, returned. However, the answer left everyone in the Four-Sex Alliance in silence. Neighboring allies on all 4 sides, while mostly politely welcoming the Four-Sex representatives, remained completely silent, not mentioning any involvement in the war. Some even outright closed their doors and refused to meet. Finally, from the mouth of a neighboring allied nation with generations of friendly relations, a vague statement emerged, indicating that the corresponding 5th-level cultivation kingdom had issued an order forbidding participation. The other cultivators sent to the corresponding 5th-level cultivation kingdoms of the Four-Sex Alliance wore gloomy expressions. The news they brought back stated that the martial cauldron didn't need to be submitted. The 5th-level cultivation kingdom wouldn't participate in this matter. Finally, that group of cultivators paid a heavy price to obtain shocking news from a cultivator at the 5th level of the cultivation kingdom. A young woman with extraordinary talent had appeared in the snow region. Even the Vermilion Bird Kingdom was astonished. In just 100 years, she had reached the peak of the late stage of the Transformation God realm, making her the most talented cultivator on Vermilion Bird Star in the past 10,000 years. If that were all, it would be understandable. But she had never consumed any kind of elixir during her 100 years of cultivation. This only increased her attention and instilled fear in others. The Vermilion Bird Kingdom sent cultivators to investigate, and they confirmed the truth. Therefore, they solemnly invited her to join the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. This was not uncommon on Vermilion Bird Star. Those with exceptionally high talent, when they shone brightly, were often noticed by the Vermilion Bird Kingdom and recruited as cultivators. These individuals, upon joining the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, didn't possess particularly high status or position. However, the young woman from the snow region was granted an extremely high status by the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, disregarding all expectations. The Vermilion Bird Kingdom did this to rise after countless years of stagnation, aiming to reach the 7th level of cultivation. But to reach the 7th level, besides the cultivator's cultivation reaching a higher level, a series of other preparatory actions are required. The difficulty level is incredibly high. Currently, the Vermilion Bird Kingdom hasn't even met the first requirement. Therefore, individuals with such exceptional talent appearing on Vermilion Bird Star naturally attract special attention. And this young woman from the snow region, with her talent reaching a level that makes others envious, is the only way the Vermilion Bird Kingdom can acquire her. She agreed to join the Vermilion Bird Kingdom with only one condition: to allow the Snow Region Kingdom to rise to the 5th level. At the same time, they had to leave the frigid Snow Region and choose a country on the Vermilion Bird Planet as their base. Just then, a martial cauldron appeared within the territory of the Four-Sect Alliance. Analysis revealed that this martial cauldron belonged to a cultivator from the Snow Region Kingdom. This led to the conflict. The Four-Sect Alliance, in a battle for the martial cauldron, was targeted by the Snow Region Kingdom, which then chose this place as its new base. But why did the martial cauldron appear in the Four-Sect Alliance? Why was it in the hands of the Crown Prince? After analysis, the Four-Sect Alliance concluded it was a conspiracy. However, denying the conspiracy now wouldn't change the reality. This news, brought back by the group of cultivators, shook the entire Four-Sect Alliance. Wang Lin had read through Chuatai's jade slip completely. Its contents weighed heavily on his heart. He hadn't expected that within this seemingly simple war for the martial cauldron, such shocking news could be hidden. He looked at the nearly empty shops on the street, his heart filled with emotion. Just a few months ago, this street was bustling with people. Shops everywhere were incredibly lively every morning when they opened. But now, because of the war between the two nations, ordinary people had been greatly affected. Wang Lin sighed softly. At this moment, he was deeply moved. Ordinary people, in the eyes of cultivators, were even less significant than ants. But these cultivators didn't forget that they too came from ordinary backgrounds. Wang Lin had no way to prevent this from happening. He also didn't want to participate. The Great Tao is ruthless. After sensing the cycle of reincarnation, Wang Lin's calm and unperturbed state of mind had undergone a transformation. He looked at the road and murmured, "It's time to go. Once I've completed this final step, I can leave this place." After saying this, he shook his head, turned around, and gently closed the shop. Then, with his hands clasped behind his back, he donned a thick padded coat and a leather hat and walked away into the distance. Gradually, his figure became blurry, finally disappearing into the snow-covered landscape. Wang Lin's movements in the air seemed slow, but in reality, they were extremely fast. As he flew, he saw many cultivators passing by like shuttles. Their faces were all somber, as if the snow-covered sky was a heavy stone weighing on their hearts. Even between them, there was little conversation. Even acquaintances would only exchange a slight nod as they passed each other. Wang Lin flew for a long time before reaching the easternmost point of the Four-Sect Alliance. This place was once a dense forest, but now not a single tree remains, only a vast expanse of white snow. Compared to the cleared area beside it, this snowfield resembles a colossal mountain range. Cold winds swept across the snowfield, carrying a sense of despair. Wang Lin stood silently in the air, gazing down at the snowfield below. After a moment of silence, he finally sighed softly, his hands forming a series of incantations, rapidly transforming. A strange wind instantly appeared, sweeping across the snowfield, creating mournful howls. In an instant, the heavens and earth seemed filled with lamentations. The snow continued to fall, the wind continued to blow. Like the boundless, endless expanse of the heavens, however, these snowflakes were somewhat peculiar. The strong winds couldn't blow away the layers of snow. Fortunately, Wang Lin's purpose wasn't to clear the snow and reveal the forest. There was no trace of worrying on Wang Lin's face. He stood silently in the sky with a calm gaze. Gradually, a small whirlwind, over 100 meters in circumference, appeared in the snowfield. The whirlwind passed through the accumulated snow, slowly sweeping everything aside. Wang Lin stood in the air for so long that some cultivators flying overhead gradually noticed him. Finally, the whirlwind in the snowfield grew larger and larger, forming a huge pit. Below the pit were many tree trunks. Wang Lin glanced at them, withdrew the incantation in his hand, and immediately descended into the whirlwind. Within a 100-meter radius, there were many dry tree trunks. These were the materials for his sculpting. More than 30 years ago, he had only obtained enough wood from this place for now. But that amount of wood was not enough for one final sculpting before he left. Therefore, he had traveled thousands of miles to come here to find wood. The type of wood Wang Lin used for sculpting now had very strict requirements. The best timber would be at least 100 years old. Of course, if there were 1,000-year-old trees, the effect would be even greater. Unfortunately, in this snow-covered land, finding high-quality timber is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Amidst the whirlwind, Wang Lin swept his divine consciousness across the area, focusing on several trees. He then broke them off and placed them in his storage bag. After a while, he flew up again. He then cast spells in the surrounding area. Gradually, hundreds of large and small whirlwinds appeared. The amount of wood in Wang Lin's storage bag increased steadily. This process continued for 7 days. During these 7 days, the entire plain was cleared. After gathering enough materials, Wang Lin glanced back at the place once more, then turned and left. During those 7 days, his actions were noticed by nearby cultivators. This news reached the Four-Sex Alliance, causing some to come to investigate. But after seeing Wang Lin's cultivation level, they immediately became respectful. Finally, Chu Wutai learned of this. He immediately used his authority to suppress the matter. After a moment of contemplation, he personally led his men to the scene, silently offering his assistance without saying a word. Otherwise, 7 days would simply not be enough for Wang Lin to gather the necessary amount of wood, nor could he clear the entire snowfield. Before leaving, Chu Wutai did not invite Wang Lin to join the Four-Sex. He simply bowed bitterly, turned around, and led his men away. Chu Wutai knew that the Four-Sex Alliance had reached a dead end. At this moment, asking someone to join would be like dragging them to their death. Even he, for the sake of his own path, had to reconsider carefully. Wang Lin nodded to Chu Wutai and then left. He traveled without stopping, heading straight to the shop in the capital. A short while later, when he reached the outskirts of the capital, his body flashed and disappeared. By the time they appeared, they were already inside the store. He took a deep breath, glancing around. Then he sat down, raised his left hand, and took out a piece of wood still covered in a little snow. His right index and middle fingers closed together, and he began to carve. This was the longest preparation he had ever done for a carving. This time, he wasn't carving just one statue, but many. Wang Lin's final boundary in his mortal transformation had reached its end. He was preparing to use this last wood carving to propel his cultivation to the god transformation stage. Even if he failed, it could elevate his mental state a step further. Thus, the distance to god transformation would grow even closer. Perhaps simply understanding the heavenly Tao would be enough to reach god transformation. He prepared to carve each person he had killed from the time he began cultivating until his mortal transformation, one by one. To be precise, the first person Wang Lin killed was his master, Sun Dezu. His hand moved up and down, and soon a wooden statue took shape. Sun Dezu's expression, filled with fear and despair just before his death, was perfectly captured in the statue. Looking at the wooden statue of Sun Dezu, Wang Lin felt incredibly calm. If it hadn't been for Sun Dezu's greed for the gourd he possessed, he might not have met such a tragic end. Karma is cyclical. Where there is life, there is death. The second person he sculpted was a middle-aged man. His eyes held a bloodthirsty look, and he appeared extremely sinister. His right hand held a flying sword, its blade gleaming with a chilling light. A wave of killing intent permeated the space. He was indeed the second person Wang Lin had killed, the master of Jianghu, a disciple of the old man Shi Mo. That day, this person was involved in a life-or-death battle with Wang Lin, but ultimately became his second victim. Glancing at the wooden statue, Wang Lin tossed it aside and continued carving another piece of wood. This third figure was a young man. He was the one who had chased after Wang Lin all those years ago, Tang Li. Remembering Tang Li, Wang Lin's emotions stirred slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. The karmic connection with Tang Li lingered in Wang Lin's mind for a long time. After a while, his fingers, like carving knives, swiftly carved onto the wood. After about half an incense stick's time, the statue of Tang Li was complete. The man had a handsome appearance, but his face showed an air of arrogance. His right hand formed a hand seal. His expression was somber, concealing a hint of greed. The corners of his mouth curled up, even revealing a smile. However, this smile was a thing of the past, long gone. Along with it, the Tang family bloodline was lost. After Wang Lin finished carving these wooden statues, they were tossed aside. Gradually, more and more wooden statues appeared on the ground. A faint, initially subtle, aura of killing intent intensified. As the number of statues increased, so did the aura of killing intent in the shop. At this point, any cultivator passing by would clearly see that above Wang Lin's shop, besides the wine and snow, there was a layer of ice. Wang Lin pretended not to notice. He was immersed in his memories, carving out all the souls he could remember. Gradually, Wang Lin forgot that he was carving. He was completely absorbed in his recollections. His past 400 years of life were like another life, slowly replaying in his mind. From his youth, entering the Hengyu sect. Within the Hengyu sect, his talent was insufficient. His cultivation was slow until he obtained a heaven-defying space, and finally, Sichuan appeared. Then, the Hengyu sect was expelled by the Zhuan sect. Afterward, he left the Hengyu sect, cultivated alone, met Zhang Hu, killed his master, went to Tang family city, unexpectedly met Tang Li, and everything unfolded. After parting ways with Zhang Hu, his fate remains unknown. Tang Li pursued him relentlessly, ultimately dying at his hands. From then on, a path of struggle ensued. The Yin sect, the Juming Valley, and then a thunderous event completely changed his life. His parents died, and the ferocious expression of Tang Hui Yuan caused his body to shatter, forcing him to escape to the outer battlefield with the help of Sichuan. This led to 400 years of bloodshed, driven by the desire to improve his cultivation and seek revenge. He spared no expense in advancing his power, becoming ruthless, heartless, and even cold-blooded. The fire-burning kingdom, the demonic cultivation sea, the land of ancient gods. These memories flashed through Wang Lin's mind. The 10,000 demons 100 days annihilation order, that was another instance outside the Tang family where he killed many people. In the land of the ancient gods, Wang Lin's impression of Meng Tuozi and his group was deeply ingrained and unforgettable. Years in the land of the ancient gods transformed him completely. Both his mind and body underwent a total metamorphosis. But it was also there where the dangers were immense. A single misstep could lead to his demise. Afterward, he formed his golden core in Chu Kingdom, reunited with Li Muan, and successfully completed the process. Finally, he could carry out his revenge plan after 400 years of waiting. In Zhao Kingdom, anyone with Ting family blood died at Wang Lin's hands. These were all karmic consequences of past grievances. Wang Lin's hands never stopped moving. The wooden statue quickly took shape. His movements became faster and faster, leaving only a series of afterimages. The images of his memories flashed through his mind even more rapidly. Gradually, he witnessed over 30 years of mortal life, birth, aging, sickness, and death. This series of images slowly merged into Wang Lin's mind. After a long time, there were no more images in his head, only two words: life and death. Life and death are a transformation of the heavenly Tao. After Wang Lin resculpted the 400 years of killing, he had clearly understood the meaning of the word death. In those 30 years of mortal life, he understood the meaning of life. Previously, he had comprehended the heavenly Tao of reincarnation for a moment, and although he ultimately failed, it left him with a deep impression and a profound understanding. Like a thin layer of paper, giving Wang Lin a sudden enlightenment. It was enlightenment, not discovery. It could be said that Wang Lin's current state of mind had reached a level where he could control his own cultivation level. In the ancient cultivation world, there was a saying: if you want mountains, you see mountains. If you want water, you see water. At this moment, Wang Lin was exactly like that. When he opened his eyes, the shop was filled with countless wooden statues. A sinister glint flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. This gaze was somewhat similar to that of Baksam at the ancient god's place. He silently gazed at the countless wooden statues before him, slowly raising his hands. Immediately, these wooden statues suddenly trembled and gathered in his hands. Gradually, more and more statues appeared, but a black stream of energy emerged in Wang Lin's hands. The statues kept falling into it, but the black stream remained unchanged. All the statues flew towards Wang Lin's hands. After the last statue disappeared into the black stream, Wang Lin calmly observed the stream. The storage bag on his back suddenly opened automatically, and all the blood spheres from the killing intent flew into it. The moment the blood spheres from the killing intent merged into the stream, a strange light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. Immediately afterward, his hands moved. Under Wang Lin's control, the black stream of energy rapidly transformed its shape, gradually becoming square, then slowly solidifying. After a long while, the black stream completely disappeared, and a square seal appeared before Wang Lin. This seal was about the size of a hand, with a figure carved on its surface. This figure had no face, only a torso. This black seal embodied the meaning of Wang Lin's 400 years of killing, represented by the character death. Wang Lin placed his right hand on the black seal. Immediately, a feeling like blood mixing with water arose in his heart. He took a deep breath, and the black seal gradually disappeared in his hand, merging into his nascent soul. Wang Lin remained silent for a moment, gazing wistfully at the shop where he had lived for over 30 years once more, then casually waved his right hand. Immediately, all the wooden carvings in the shop vanished. Then he opened the door, letting the night wind and snow blow in, and stepped outside. Wang Lin slowly walked to the crossroads. The wind and snow grew stronger. When he first left the shop, his figure was that of an old man on the verge of death, but with each step, as he reached the end of the street, his height gradually increased. The wrinkles on his face slowly disappeared. Finally, in an instant, standing at the end of the street, Wang Lin transformed from a mortal into a cultivator. He was not yet a god transformation cultivator, but at this moment, the distance to becoming a god transformation cultivator was very close. Grasping the essence of life and death, understanding the heavenly Tao, Wang Lin felt a light, airy sensation in his body, as if he wanted to fly, a feeling that gradually spread throughout his body. It seemed as if a miraculous force from the heavens was expanding, pulling him in. This feeling is a sign of impending nascent soul. At this moment, he doesn't need to understand the heavenly Tao, nor does he need to sense the profound meaning. He only needs to find a quiet place to seclude himself for 10 years, and he will surely reach the nascent soul realm. Wang Lin stood at the end of the street, turning his head to glance at the 10 empty houses at this intersection. He had lived on this street for 30 years. Every tree and blade of grass in this place appeared in his heart. A trace of regret arose in his heart. After looking for a long time, imprinting all the scenery in his heart, Wang Lin sighed, turned around, and disappeared into the night. To the south of the Four Sects Alliance lay a city spanning over 10,000 miles. This place was teeming with ordinary people. Cold weather shelters were scattered everywhere, and many people were inside. They were brought here to do snow shoveling. Daniel was in one of those rooms. There were over 30 people in his room. The room, already small, was now even more cramped. Daniel lay in the corner, his eyes vacant, staring at the ceiling. He missed his wife, his son, and especially Wang Lin. Everything from the past had vanished into thin air under this snowstorm. Before this snowstorm, he was well-fed and well-clothed. He owned a shop, and even employed several shop assistants and a manager. His son had joined a sect of immortals and become a member of that sect. At that crossroads, his life could be considered bright. His wife loved him, and life was good. He even intended to wait until his Uncle Wang was a little older so that he wouldn't have to carve wooden statues anymore, but instead would take care of him in his old age. In his mind, his parents were gone, and his Uncle Wang, who had watched him grow up, had become an elder. But this terrible snowstorm changed everything. He didn't know how his wife was doing. For months, he'd heard that even women and children had been captured, and he was distraught and worried. His wife's health wasn't good. How could she possibly endure this cold? Witnessing people freezing to death, Daniel's heart ached as if it were being cut by a knife. It wasn't because he felt any sense of brotherhood, but because of a deep despair and worrying for his wife. He worried that she wouldn't be able to bear it and would leave him. Besides his wife, the person he worried about most was Wang Lin. In his opinion, Uncle Wang was also getting old and his health was failing. He had lost his parents, and he didn't want Uncle Wang to leave him as well. Daniel's son, Zhang Xiniu, had just joined the White Cloud sect. His Cha condensation stage cultivation elevated his status far above that of ordinary mortals, but his strength was useless in the midst of a battle between two nations. Therefore, although he wanted to find his parents, the alliance of the four major sects was so vast that all the ordinary mortals had been captured and scattered throughout the country. Unless he possessed extraordinary supernatural powers, he simply couldn't find them. Danu had been traveling for a long time during this snowfall. Almost every day he saw people freezing to death beside him. At the same time, he discovered the miraculous nature of the wooden sculpture. Whenever he felt cold, the sculpture would emit streams of warmth. This warmth would instantly spread throughout his body, allowing him to survive even the coldest weather. After learning about the sculpture's miraculous nature, Danu couldn't help but feel a strange sense of unfamiliarity towards Wang Lin. Until now, he couldn't fully understand this old man. It was precisely because of this wooden statue that Danu's worries about his wife lessened somewhat. He believed that as long as his wife didn't take the statue down, she could be like him, not freezing to death. But as time passed, the snow seemed to never completely disappear, and despair welled up in Danu's heart. The snow fell from the sky, though small, without interruption. In the past few days, many ordinary people had secretly fled. They wanted to escape to the neighboring country, even if it meant giving up everything. As long as they could live, there was still hope. It was said that the neighboring country was now snow-free, the weather was like spring, everything was flourishing, and the sun was shining brightly. This morning, Danu was the first to wake up. He crawled out of bed. Beside him was the second son of the Chu family. This young man was just over 20 years old, in the prime of his life. Normally, when working, he was assigned to the same team as Danu and always helped him a lot. He was a simple and honest child. Danu pushed him, but he suddenly flinched. He looked at the second son of the Chu family, his right hand trembling as he placed it on his nose, then let out a bitter laugh, muttering, "He's dead." Just now, when he pushed him, Danu noticed his body had stiffened. At this moment, Danu's tears flowed like rain. The 40-year-old man sat with his head in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. He missed his home, his wife, his son, Wang Lin, his shop, and the warm days of the past. At this moment, people began to get up, staring at Danu in astonishment, only to realize that 5 people had frozen to death in this room in just one night. Everyone fell silent. After a long while, a voice from outside shouted, "Come out and get to work. Anyone who dares to be lazy will be thrown out to freeze to death." Someone in the room sighed softly and slowly walked out. Their eyes were vacant, their faces pale and sickly. A few months ago, when they first arrived to shovel snow, they initially had plenty to eat, but over time, food became scarcer. Now, their physical strength was severely depleted. Danu sat on the ground, clutching his head and weeping. A kind middle-aged man approached and pulled him up, whispering, "Danu, let's go as long as we're alive. There's hope." Danu was pulled along, staring at the motionless body of the second son of the Chu family, tears streaming down his face again. Stepping out of the room, a cold wind immediately struck his face. Danu's body was icy cold, but at that moment, the wooden statue on his body radiated warmth, dispelling the chill. Danu touched his chest, watching people coming out of the surrounding rooms. He gritted his teeth and decided to escape. He wanted to find his wife. Then the two of them would leave this place, flee to a neighboring country, try to survive, and return when the snow melted. Late that night, while everyone was fast asleep, Danu quietly got up and opened the door. The biting wind sent shivers down his spine. He gritted his teeth and ventured into the snowstorm. Human soldiers were stationed all around, but they paid no heed to the fleeing civilians. In this freezing weather, staying was the only chance of survival. Leaving meant certain death. Initially, some paid attention, but later they ignored him. If he was determined to court death, who could stop him? Danu walked slowly through the snow-covered field. The world was vast, yet there seemed to be no place for him to find refuge. As the night deepened, the wind grew colder, and Danu struggled to walk. Suddenly, he tripped over something, slipped, and fell face down. Beside him lay a body frozen solid. The body was clearly not very old, so there wasn't much snow covering it, only a thin layer. When Danu fell, his face was right next to the corpses. Even his breath reached the body. Stunned for a moment, Danu cried out in fear, scrambled to his feet, and retreated. But he immediately stumbled and fell again. A chill ran down Danu's spine as he carefully looked around and realized there were countless corpses in this place. Danu was an ordinary man. The longing for his wife, the death of the second son of the Chu family, despair, and fear of the future completely shattered him. He crouched on the snow, sobbing uncontrollably. After a long while, Danu suddenly felt his body warm up. Immediately, a warm hand rested on his head, gently patting him. Danu, don't be afraid. Danu turned around, astonished to see a young man standing behind him. This man looked much younger than Danu, but his eyes held a profound sadness. Danu was familiar with this man. He recognized him at a glance. It was Uncle Wang, whom he had always missed. But this man's appearance was too youthful. Danu looked at Wang Lin and suddenly remembered his childhood, opening the shop door and seeing Wang Lin for the first time. Back then, Wang Lin was exactly the same as he is now. Uncle Wang, Danu said, stunned for a moment, then whispered. He vaguely felt that this uncle, who had been by his side since childhood, was definitely not an immortal. He was silent for a while, then whispered, You're an immortal. Wang Lin looked around, finally focusing his gaze on Danu's face, gently nodding and smiling. All right, Uncle Wang is here. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Come, I'll take you to find your wife. At this moment, Danu felt like he was dreaming. Wang Lin's image in his mind quickly transformed, from old to young. He felt disoriented, his expression slightly panicked. Wang Lin sighed inwardly, lightly tapping Danu's head with his right hand. Immediately, Danu felt an irresistible drowsiness wash over him, and he slowly slumped down. Wang Lin flicked his right hand. A gentle light enveloped Danu's body. Then Wang Lin's body flashed, and he flew away. 3,000 miles away, there was a gathering place for ordinary people clearing snow. Wang Lin found Danu's wife in the women's quarters. When Wang Lin gave them the wooden statue, he had left a trace of his divine consciousness, which would detect them at a crucial moment and save their lives. Wang Lin had been with Danu for more than 10 years, so it was not surprising that he wanted to help them. Taking Danu and his wife with him, Wang Lin quickly flew away. He stopped at the border of the neighboring country. There were 2 light screens separating the 2 countries. Wang Lin released Danu and his wife, placed his right hand on the light screen, and released his spiritual power. Immediately, the light screen seemed to be torn apart, revealing a passage large enough for him to pass through. Wang Lin sighed, then tapped the heads of Danu and his wife, leaving behind a small bundle before turning and disappearing. A moment later, Danu woke up, his eyes wide with shock. He felt like he had been dreaming of Uncle Wang. Uncle Wang's appearance was exactly like his own when he was young. He sighed, suddenly lost in thought, touching the woman beside him, calling out, then nudging her a few times. After a while, the woman opened her eyes, also stunned by Danu's appearance. Then the 2 embraced and wept loudly. Danu, why am I here? I remember I was still in the room when I fell asleep, Danu's wife asked after sobbing a few times. Danu remained silent for a moment. He looked up at the sky, and after a long time, sighed. He knew it wasn't a dream, but reality. He gently embraced his wife, silently standing still, gazing at the passageway on the light screen and the small bundle in the distance. When Danu opened the small package, there was quite a bit of gold inside. He pulled his wife to her knees, bowed several times towards the capital, and silently said, Uncle Wang, thank you. He picked up the package, pulled his wife, and passed through the light screen, leaving the 4-sex alliance. Not long after he left, Wang Lin reappeared where the 2 had knelt. He watched the figures of Danu and his wife disappear, his eyes showing joy. With his divine sense, he had detected a small city not far from here. Just following this path would lead there. Danu lived there for the rest of his life. Even until his death, he never forgot Uncle Wang, who had been by his side since childhood. However, in this life, he would no longer have the opportunity to meet Wang Lin again. Wang Lin stood still for a long time, watching Danu and his wife leave. For more than 30 years, from an innocent young man, Danu had married, had children, and was now middle-aged. Wang Lin understood that Danu was also subject to the cycle of life and death. Sooner or later, he would die. Wang Lin chuckled, pointing his right hand at the halo of light, and immediately a 5-colored radiance flashed and merged into the halo. Wang Lin looked around and without a moment's hesitation immediately left the 4-sect alliance. Because he still had one goal left unachieved, the martial cauldron. This martial cauldron was a source of disaster for the 4-sect alliance. But at the same time, it was also a treasure, an effective method to become a nascent soul cultivator. For Wang Lin, the martial cauldron was truly an opportunity for future cultivation. Wang Lin felt the nascent soul realm drawing closer and closer. His spiritual power today was no longer as pure as before. This spiritual energy was almost tainted. It wasn't the weather that had changed in recent years, but rather Wang Lin's abilities and the elevation of his mental state that had caused his entire body to sense that there was something wrong with this spiritual power. The spiritual power today, if it were below the nascent soul stage, wouldn't be affected. Such cultivators wouldn't be able to detect any impurities in the spiritual energy. But to reach the nascent soul stage, this spiritual energy is extremely important. Even the spiritual water, collected from the morning dew by the heaven-defying pearl, can be said to be pure, but perhaps due to the incomplete 5 elements, it's still a bit lacking. However, the 5 elements are truly difficult to gather. Besides water, other attributes, such as fire, require a fire element beast to be fully supplemented. Other incomplete attributes also require the spiritual energy of other beasts. Because of this, Wang Lin has been unable to complete the 5 elements of the heaven-defying pearl for over 400 years. Wang Lin must enter the immortal gate to gather immortal spiritual energy. Therefore, his goal is the martial cauldron. But obviously, now is not the time to gather the martial cauldron. The truly crucial moment would be when the cultivators of the Snow region and the Four-Sect Alliance clashed. Thinking of this, Wang Lin's eyes gleamed with calmness. He chose the highest point on the cloud-shrouded snow-covered mountain peak and slowly descended. As he landed, he unleashed the Forbidden's banner, quickly enveloping himself and its surroundings. Wang Lin's figure then vanished from the mountaintop. Wang Lin didn't know when the cultivators of the Snow region would arrive. Therefore, he prepared to make the most of every moment, striving to quickly achieve the God transformation stage, thus increasing his chances of obtaining the martial cauldron. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Perhaps the formation in the sky had begun to take effect. Or perhaps the cultivators of the Snow region were about to arrive. In short, the snowfall intensified. The entire area within the Four-Sect Alliance was unexpectedly covered in ice. Over the course of a year, the number of mortals who died was immense. Although only corpses were visible on the surface, beneath the surface lay a mixture of ice, snow, and bodies. The entire territory of the Four-Sect Alliance had become a hellish place. In fact, the four sects had split into 2 factions. One faction intended to avoid the storm, while the other resolutely resisted. However, this wasn't a war between equally matched forces. The Snow Domain Kingdom was only a 4th-tier cultivation nation. On this day, a rift appeared thousands of miles above the sky, and suddenly a large amount of dark blue cold air gushed out. From the rift, in the center of the Four-Sect Alliance, emerged a woman. This woman wore white, perhaps even whiter than snow. Her appearance wasn't breathtakingly beautiful, but she exuded an icy coldness, like the freezing winter air. It seemed even the ice and snow couldn't compare to her coldness. She gently and slowly emerged from the crack, glancing up at the sky, then raised her right hand and casually pointed into the air. Immediately, a small crack silently appeared in midair, rapidly opening. At this moment, a series of shattering sounds, like breaking glass, suddenly echoed throughout the entire Four-Sect Alliance. Simultaneously, the formation concealed above the air crumbled into pieces, falling like a snowstorm to every corner of the four sects. Immediately afterward, countless white-robed cultivators emerged from the cracks. All of these cultivators shared one thing in common. Their faces were icy cold. A chilling aura emanated from them, instantly filling every corner of the Four-Sect Alliance. A powerful killing intent enveloped the entire alliance. Strangely, most of the cultivators from the Four-Sect Alliance did not appear, leaving the Snow region cultivators emerging from the crack unopposed. More and more monks from the Snow realm appeared, but none made a sound. Their eyes were all focused on the woman. Despite the great distance, all eyes were fixed on the woman. Her gaze was icy cold as she pointed to the right. With a simple gesture, all the cultivators of the Snow region suddenly erupted with killing intent, their bodies transforming into streaks of white light, crashing down from the sky. This single movement triggered a chain reaction. Instantly, all the cultivators above the Four-Sect Alliance descended simultaneously. However, while they were still suspended in midair, 4 towering pillars of light rose from all 4 directions of the Four-Sect Alliance. The 4 pillars of light blue, red, purple, and white like 4 pillars supporting the heavens suddenly appeared. At the same time, several large illusory figures materialized on these pillars of light. They quickly flew and coalesced into a group of ancient savage warriors clad in leather armor. These savages were enormous. Upon closer inspection, one could see that within each of their massive chests sat a person. While their abilities were indistinguishable, they were clearly not low-level cultivators. A group of colossal savages emerged from the four pillars of light, beginning to advance, roaring angrily as they charged towards the snow domain cultivators in the air. These savages were numerous, all advancing together, all for today's battle. As the savages appeared, a furious roar erupted from the white cloud sect to the east. A large black rock rose into the air. Sitting atop the rock was an old man bound by 9 chains. The old man's face was contorted, and a purple aura enveloped his entire body. He was almost naked, covered only by a few pieces of cloth. His hair was disheveled, his eyes hazy, staring intently at the snow domain cultivators in midair, and he licked his lips with his tongue. His tongue was incredibly long, and when extended, it resembled a demonic creature, a terrifying sight. Immediately afterward, a roar echoed from the south of the water ink sect. A massive bronze cauldron flew out from behind the water ink sect. Countless ancient talismans were engraved on it. A primordial aura slowly diffused outwards. Above it stood an old man in a long red robe, his gaze calm as he looked up into the air. The greenwood cliff to the west was no less agitated. Strange occurrences were happening on both the east and west sides. A black, muddy pool, approximately 100 meters long, emitted a foul stench from the greenwood cliff. Occasionally, bubbles rose from the black water, and sometimes a face filled with agony appeared amidst the mud. This black muddy area suddenly appeared, seemingly connected to the snow on all 4 sides, all indicating an impending battle. Immediately afterward, a long cry erupted from the Black Soul sect in the north. A young man, appearing frail, slowly floated through the air. His face was pale, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. His body floated with incredible lightness. He gently waved his right hand downwards. Instantly, countless streams of black energy appeared throughout the Black Soul sect. These energies merged to form a black brush. As soon as the brush appeared, the heavens and earth changed color. The old man in the red robe sitting on the bronze peak and the thin old man bound by 9 chains to the rock both showed expressions of fear. The brush, seemingly unremarkable, slowly fell into the young man's hand. He held it, and in an instant, an unusual flush appeared on his face. A year is a long time. Surely the 4 sects must have made some preparations. In fact, they had already prepared, bringing out all their treasured sect artifacts. Based on that, they launched a counterattack. After all, the majority of the cultivators of the 4 sects alliance were born and raised in this land. Although there was some division, when the cultivators from the snow region arrived, they completely united and stood together to confront the foreign enemy. Because they didn't want to be like dogs in mourning, they didn't want to be unable to protect even their own families. People cannot be without homes. Cultivators are also people. This is a battle to the death. Unless they can completely annihilate them, the war will not end. The woman in white stood in midair, her eyes icy cold, and softly said, "Sweep them all away. This place will become the new land of the snow region cultivators." As soon as these words were spoken, the snow region cultivators immediately roared, their shouts gradually forming a continuous stream. Upon reaching a peak, the woman made a hand gesture, and a stream of multicolored light emanated from her hand. After this stream of multicolored light appeared, it instantly transformed into 5 identical female figures. These 5 were merely clones. At this moment, Wang Lin was at the foot of a snow-covered mountain within the 4 sects alliance. Naturally, his divine consciousness was scanning the area. Upon seeing the 5 clones, his divine consciousness instantly merged into the heaven-defying pearl, causing a sudden tremor. There were many divine consciousnesses in the air, so naturally. No one paid attention to Wang Lin's divine consciousness. On the snow-covered mountain peak, Wang Lin immediately opened his eyes, revealing a strange expression. He muttered, 5 elements spiritual Chao. That year, the heaven-defying pearl only needed to absorb the fire spirit, and its attributes would immediately be perfected. At this moment, when Wang Lin saw this 5 elements spiritual energy, his heart stirred slightly. But this thought was immediately dismissed from his mind. He didn't know if that woman was the Zhou mentioned by the prodigy from the Snow Region Kingdom, but even if she wasn't, Her abilities must be at least at the mid-stage of the god transformation realm. He was far from being able to defeat her. The 5 elements spiritual energy appeared in an instant. The skinny old man from the White Cloud sect sitting on the rock immediately burst into laughter. He suddenly flew up, grabbing the iron chain on the rock and soaring forward. The water spirit within the 5 elements spiritual energy immediately turned around, carrying a large wave of magical power, transforming into a stream of green water and flying towards it. At the same time, the other 3 spiritual energies all flew towards the 4 sects. Only the fire spirit remained suspended in midair, its entire body transforming into a blue flame, fiercely flying towards the ancient savages to burn them. All the snow region cultivators surrounding them shows members of the 4 sects transforming into streaks of icy light and beginning the slaughter. A chilling aura emanated from the icy surface. This aura numbed the senses of the 4 sects cultivators, but for the snow region cultivators, it was the best kind of magical weapon and artifact. At a certain level, this aura could even restore their spiritual power. It was a great help. The entire space above the 4 sects alliance was covered by countless beams of light of various colors. The Watering Sect, White Cloud Sect, Greenwood Cliff, and Black Soul Sect, these 4 sects were the decisive battlefields of this battle. A few ordinary people also remained here, hiding in their rooms, silently praying, unaware of the reason behind this. But most of them had never seen so many cultivators in their lives. At the border of the 4 sects alliance, neighboring sects had dispatched high-ranking cultivators to surround the alliance. They weren't there to participate in the battle, but to prevent cultivators from within from emerging. Neither cultivators from the 4 sects alliance nor those from the snow region could take a single step outside. Unless someone ultimately won, there were no exceptions. The savage beasts numbered 99 in total. They were enormous, taking massive strides and swinging their gigantic arms. Each punch shattered the bodies of several snow region cultivators, killing them instantly. They were engaged in battle with the snow region cultivators amidst the 4 sects alliance. Although the savage beasts possessed immense power, each punch imbued with magical attacks, even containing profound insights, they still showed some apprehension towards the fire spirit whose body had transformed into a flame. Meanwhile, a savage who had just shattered the bodies of 2 snow domain cultivators with a single punch was immediately enveloped in flames. His entire body instantly emitted a thick white mist, which dissipated within a few breaths. Even the cultivator controlling the flames could hardly escape death, being burned to ashes. But strangely, despite the extremely high temperature of the flames, the snow remained unaffected. In the air, after the Great Formation was broken, a massive, endless snowstorm erupted from the crack. The snow continued to fall. The snow domain cultivators here weren't just the white-robed woman alone. These snow domain cultivators had clearly planned meticulously before arriving. From among the snow domain cultivators surrounding the 4 sects, several figures emerged one after another. A white-haired old man headed towards the White Cloud sect. He spread his arms wide, uttering a series of complex incantations. Immediately, a fierce wind blew out from a crack in the air. Next, on the snow-covered mountain, a 100-foot-wide snowfield was strangely lifted into the air. Below the woman in white, a 7-colored radiance suddenly flashed on the ground. A massive door silently appeared, and the nascent soul cultivators of the 4-sect alliance emerged one after another. The middle-aged scholar and the old woman from the White Cloud sect were clearly among them. However, the old man in green who possessed the time and space intent was not present. Among them were 4 particularly noteworthy old men. These 4 looked as if they had just emerged from coffins, their faces covered in wrinkles. They were the 4 grand elders of the 4-sect alliance. These 4 men raised their heads and glanced at the ice and snow towers. One of them suddenly unbuckled his belt. The muscles on his thin body swelled up wildly, making popping sounds. His joints also instantly expanded, and the wrinkles on his face disappeared completely as his body grew. Almost instantly, he transformed from a thin, frail old man into a dignified, middle-aged man. His gaze was serious as he stared at the woman in white, speaking in a loud voice. "I am Jian, a cultivator from the Black Soul sect. Are you perhaps Taoist Hangyi from the Snow Region Kingdom?" The Hangyi the old man was referring to was the Snow Region's prodigy, recruited by the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, who had reached the late stage of the transformation god realm within 100 years of peerless genius. The woman in white's eyes flashed, and she coldly replied, So you are GN, one of the 8 late-stage transformation god realm cultivators of the Four-Sex Alliance. Ju-yun slightly furrowed his brows. Her answer was clearly irrelevant to the question. But at this moment, if the woman didn't answer, his gaze would turn cold, and he would raise his right hand. This move was not only a signal to declare war, but also a signal for the members of the Four-Sect Alliance to prepare for the second step in their plan. Uncle Yun couldn't wait any longer. Regardless of whether she was Hongdai or not, he had to take a gamble. The nascent soul cultivators of the surrounding sects also moved slightly, soaring into the air. The white-robed woman's eyes revealed a hint of contempt. From the ice and snow towers, a group of nascent soul cultivators from the snow region quickly emerged. A high-level battle ensued. Under the power of these highly skilled cultivators, the entire land within the Four-Sect Alliance was instantly shaken, the weather changing drastically. Each nascent soul cultivator possessed the power to move mountains and fill seas. Waves of powerful energy surged, causing many lower-level cultivators to slowly disperse. Regardless of whether they were cultivators from the Four-Sect Alliance or the Snow region, anyone touched by these energy waves would be severely injured or killed. The battle was divided into 2 parts. One part consisted of nascent soul cultivators fighting on the ground, while the other part consisted of nascent soul cultivators battling in the air. Wang Lin had now witnessed the battle reaching its most intense point. He hid himself in the snow-covered mountain peak, observing the nascent soul cultivators he couldn't reach, carefully observing the profound meanings and techniques they possessed. Nascent soul cultivators' battles were not confined to one place. They traveled thousands of miles. Before long, the nascent soul cultivators on both sides dispersed in all directions, using the entire Four-Sex Alliance as their battlefield, engaging in a life-or-death struggle. The white-robed woman's eyes showed even more contempt, and she formed a hand seal, a powerful white light appearing in her hand. But at this moment, 9 points of light suddenly appeared beside her body. As soon as these points of light appeared, they immediately began to flash continuously. Immediately afterward, 9 illusions suddenly appeared. One of these 9 people was the old man in the green robe with the time and space intent from the White Cloud sect. As soon as these 9 appeared, the woman in white's expression immediately turned unpleasant. She snorted softly, and with a flick of her right hand, took out a fan made from 7 large feathers. Her eyes flashed, and a feather on the fan in her hand automatically separated. The separated feather immediately curled up, transforming into a wisp of smoke. Inside the smoke, a huge figure suddenly formed. This figure seemed like a woman with an alluring body, but in reality, it was just a black shadow. She gently blew a breath, and immediately the 9 people surrounding her began to tremble, each spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, but their bodies did not move a single step. At the same time, the 9 people simultaneously shouted, and 9 different intents began to attack the woman like a fierce wave. At this moment, any cultivator from the snow region who saw this would have their expression drastically changed, wanting to rush to help. But they were engaged in battle with the nascent soul stage cultivators of the Four Sects. How could they allow them to go and rescue that woman? All of this had been planned in advance. The woman's expression also changed drastically, and she violently fanned herself with her fan. Another feather was separated, but it was too late. This killing formation had been prepared by the Four-Sect Alliance for a long time, specifically to deal with the Snow region's most favored daughter. Once the Snow region's most favored daughter was killed today, the war would take a huge turn. Losing a valuable cultivator from the Snow region, the Vermilion Bird Kingdom would not be able to sit idly by. Although this might provoke the Vermilion Bird Kingdom's anger, the survival of the nation was still more important than the present situation. At this moment, 9 people attacked simultaneously. Countless cultivators maintaining the formation within the Four-Sex Alliance had their bodies go limp and fell to the ground dead. They were the ones bearing the brunt of the white-robed woman's attack. This woman dared to stand alone in the air because she possessed a fan. However, she was very confident in this treasured fan crafted by a 5th-level cultivation nation. After acquiring the fan, except for her junior sister, whom she still lagged behind, no nascent soul stage cultivator was a match for her. Among these 9, 5 were late-stage nascent soul cultivators, and the remaining 4 were those who possessed the special intent of the Four Sects. It could be said that in this killing formation, anyone who wasn't a nascent soul stage cultivator would surely die. Under the raging tide, the white-robed woman no longer had the strength to resist, and her body instantly transformed into a cloud of blood mist. The fan was left with only 2 feathers, which were seized by a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Then, the 9 figures transformed into points of light, disappearing into thin air. Under the attack of the fan, they had all paid a heavy price. Their cultivation levels had all decreased significantly, requiring a long period of seclusion to recover. The nascent soul cultivators of the snow region, seeing this, showed expressions of anger. However, within that anger, there was no trace of sorrow. Instead, they became even more frenzied, continuing the battle against the four-sect alliance. Wang Lin witnessed everything that happened. He frowned, observing the expressions of the snow region cultivators, feeling that something was amiss. This woman's identity was probably not that of a favored daughter of heaven. At this moment, 7 colored pillars of light suddenly rose from the ground. There were a total of 108 of these pillars of light. They were distributed in various corners of the four-sect alliance and simultaneously rose into the air. From above, these 108 pillars of light formed a massive formation in the center of the four-sect alliance. On the ground, at the location of the pillars of light in the air, countless cultivators sat cross-legged. All of them had their eyes closed, their entire cultivation and spiritual power channeled into the pillars of light to maintain the transformation of this formation. The entire ground began to tremble. The ancient Tianyang mountain range in the center of the four-sect alliance, though currently covered in ice and snow, began to crumble. With a rumbling sound, the layers of ice gradually broke apart. Under the activation of the 108 pillars of light, the entire Tianyang mountain range transformed into a colossal, 10,000-foot-long azure dragon, slowly moving its body. Countless ice and snow fragments on the azure dragon rapidly fell. The azure dragon raised its head, its enormous eyes staring intently at the snow domain cultivators in the air above. Atop the azure dragon stood a figure. Wang Lin recognized him as the great earth cultivator, Zhao Wutai. Zhao Wutai naturally held a high position in the four-sect alliance because he possessed the bloodline of the azure dragon, the guardian of the four-sect alliance. Only he, after activating the azure dragon great formation, was capable of controlling this azure dragon and waging war to protect the nation. The azure dragon suddenly let out a roar. This sound transformed into waves of air that spread outwards. The cultivators of the four-sect alliance were greatly invigorated upon hearing the roar. As planned, the azure dragon's roar signaled the start of the decisive battle. A large number of cultivators from the four sects flew out to join the battlefield, engaging in combat with the cultivators of the snow region. Wang Lin hid himself in the snow, frowning. If the snow domain cultivators were fighting like this, the four-sect alliance would obviously win. But for some reason, he always had a feeling of impending danger. After thinking for a moment, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly flashed. His divine sense detected that, about 1,000 miles away from the Black Soul sect, a 5-elements earth spirit, its entire body emitting dense black energy, was rapidly approaching. Behind the earth spirit was a young man holding a brush, his eyes still closed, following at a steady pace. The brush in his hand occasionally moved slightly, causing the earth spirit to tremble all over, the black energy too heavy. Seeing the scene before him, Wang Lin's heart struggled intensely. After a moment, his eyes blazed again, and without hesitation, he silently emerged amidst the snow and wind, flying towards the 5-elements earth spirit. Getting closer and closer. 8,000 miles, 7,000 miles, 6,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 4,000 miles, 3,000 miles. When he was about 3,000 miles away, Wang Lin suddenly disappeared, then reappeared 2,000 miles away. In an instant, he slapped his forehead, and a black seal immediately flew out from his mouth. As soon as the seal appeared, it instantly emitted a dense aura of killing intent. Numerous remnant souls, under the influence of this killing intent, appeared. Wang Lin lightly flicked his right hand, and the black seal slowly rose and disappeared. He took a deep breath, and his hands quickly formed a series of incantations, sending out various restrictions in all directions. Then he potted his storage bag and took out the Forbidden's banner, holding it in his hand. The Forbidden's banner trembled slightly, and immediately the space was enveloped in a black mist. In an instant, the black mist disappeared. After that, the 5-element earth spirit was flying towards them from afar. The poor earth spirit looked extremely pathetic. It saw Wang Lin, but paid no attention to him. with its cultivation level equivalent to a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Even though it was severely injured, dealing with a late-stage nascent soul cultivator was just a flick of its wrist. It seemed that the Earth Spirit underestimated Wang Lin, deeming him unworthy to warrant its vigilance. Flying forward in an instant, the Earth Spirit waved its hand, and a dense surge of Earth Spirit energy rushed towards him. Upon contact, Wang Lin spat out a mouthful of blood. His nascent soul was also severely shaken, almost shattering. The Earth Spirit raised its eyebrows, its body not pausing for even half a second, continuing its flight. But at this moment, Wang Lin spat out a drop of fresh blood, instantly transforming into a blood mist and dissipating into the horizon. Simultaneously, a thick, black mist suddenly appeared all around. Numerous restrictions roared out from within the mist, swirling around the Earth Spirit's body. Immediately afterward, 8 black beams flashed around it, and the restrictions and forbidden banners formed a massive prison, trapping it inside. Wang Lin immediately retreated, blinking his eyes. He knew that with his cultivation level, he couldn't hope to resist the Earth Spirit. But he didn't intend to fight himself. He just needed to hold the Earth Spirit back for a while, waiting for the young man with the brush to arrive, and then he would naturally deal with it. The Earth Spirit obviously discovered Wang Lin's intentions. It roared in anger, its entire body rushing towards the black mist of the Forbidden's formation, ignoring the roaring Forbidden's energy beside it. In fact, that Forbidden's energy wasn't worth its attention. As soon as it touched the Earth Spirit's body, the Forbidden's energy was completely devoured. Once, more than half of the black mist formed by the Forbidden's banner instantly disappeared, and a crisp crackling sound echoed from within. Wang Lin felt immense pain. He knew his Forbidden's banner had been torn, but the Earth Spirit still couldn't break free and went berserk again, charging forward with a thunderous roar. At this moment, the black mist instantly dissipated, and although the Forbidden's banner wasn't completely destroyed, more and more cracks appeared. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He realized the Earth Spirit wanted to break through the Forbidden's banner again. Just then, the young man with the brush arrived, still not bothering to lift his eyelids. With a wave of his right hand, he drew a line with the brush, seemingly leisurely but actually moving forward with extreme speed. Immediately, the Earth Spirit let out a mournful cry, black smoke billowing wildly from its body. Its whole body went limp, its eyes filled with resentment and unwillingness, wanting to charge into the Forbidden's banner again. Wang Lin was slightly startled. He lightly waved his right hand, and a large black seal suddenly appeared in midair, striking down with immense force. A powerful killing intent emanated from it, along with countless souls, like a celestial tower descending. Enraged, the Earth Spirit transformed into a pile of mud and rushed forward, engulfing the black seal. At this moment, the young man opened his eyes, a strange light flashing in them, and flicked the brush in his hand. The pile of black mud formed by the Earth Spirit instantly vanished by half, causing it to momentarily freeze. The black seal pressed down in an instant, and the Earth Spirit let out another miserable groan. The pile of mud solidified into a human form, but half of its body was now transparent, seemingly ready to dissipate with a single gust of wind. Its eyes were filled with despair. Seeing the young man raise his brush to strike, Wang Lin immediately rushed out, disappearing into the Forbidden's banner in a flash. Frowning, a tremendous suction force emanated from his forehead, quickly capturing the Earth Spirit and pulling it into his mind. Trapped within the heaven-defying pearl, Wang Lin didn't have time to think. He opened his mouth and sucked the black seal back in. With a thud, the Forbidden's banner vanished, returning to his storage bag. Everything was done in the blink of an eye. Without hesitation, he shouted, "A disciple of the White Cloud sect, my teacher is Ching Song." Having finished speaking, he silently chanted an incantation to control the statue in his storage bag. His whole body glowed, and he turned and fled. The young man coldly glanced at him, his brush in hand not lowering, and only after a long time did he turn and leave. Wang Lin ran for more than 1,000 miles before daring to stop, looking back to see that the man had gone, and breathed a sigh of relief. This is what they call having ambition to become an official and courage to become rich. This time, Wang Lin had taken a great risk, snatching the Earth Spirit from someone's mouth and then fleeing. He resolved not to take such a risk again to seize the 5 elemental spirits. It was too dangerous. If he was even slightly careless, he would surely lose his life. Moreover, the Forbidden's banner was severely damaged, and he was very heartbroken. Hiding himself in the snow again, Wang Lin checked the heaven-defying pearl once more, finding that the earth attribute was complete, leaving only the metal and wood attributes, thus completing the 5 elements of the heaven-defying pearl. Just then, the ground suddenly shook. Immediately afterward, countless ice blocks rose up, pushing through the snow with a thunderous roar. These ice blocks were the same ones Wang Lin had seen before, the strange objects hidden 5,000 feet beneath the ground. Numerous ice blocks emerged from the ground, breaking through the snow layer and standing tall. Looking directly down from the sky, one could discern that these ice sculptures formed a pattern. The shape of this pattern was very similar to what was carved on the snake human ice sculpture. After appearing, the ice sculptures emitted thousands of icy rays. At the same time, another group of ice sculptures suddenly rose from the ground. Within the Four-Sex Alliance, all the ice sculptures unexpectedly soared upwards at an unimaginable speed, almost instantly reaching the middle of the air. Except for the largest spatial rift, all the others silently disappeared. Immediately afterward, from the largest rift in the center, a thick, dark blue mist emanated. This mist spread out, covering thousands of miles. Several cultivators from the Four-Sex Alliance couldn't dodge in time and were struck by the blue mist, instantly turning into ice statues and falling from midair. Even their nascent souls were corroded by this strange mist, freezing almost instantly. This terrifying scene horrified the surrounding cultivators of the Four-Sex Alliance. Then, the dense blue mist flew towards the ice statues in midair, beginning to melt them in a bizarre way. In a flash, all the ice statues completely dissolved, as if they had never existed. At that very moment, from within the large crack in the blue mist, and boundless pressure slowly emanated, and a serpent-like creature, as large as a small mountain, slowly crawled out from the gap. As soon as the object appeared, the blue mist intensified, surging in all directions, turning anything it touched into ice. Wang Lin gasped, not daring to delay, and rushed out of the snow-covered mountain peak, sighing inwardly as he used all his strength to fly away as fast as he could. Less than 3/4 of an hour after he left the snow-covered peak, the mountain was enveloped by the spreading blue mist, instantly transforming into an ice mountain. At this moment, the main body of the object had descended halfway, becoming visible. From the waist up, it surprisingly resembled a human form. In fact, from the moment this monster appeared, Wang Lin had guessed it was the ice statue. Although this had been recorded in the Jade Slip informing Zhou Wutai, how to counter this monster was what truly concerned Wang Lin. Wang Lin's feet touched the ground as he ran headlong, only daring to stop when the deadly aura had completely dissipated. His face was grim as he looked up at the sky, remaining silent. At this moment, Zhou Wutai, standing on the Azure Dragon One, snorted softly. Immediately, the Azure Dragon beneath his feet suddenly moved, and amidst the rumbling sounds, its colossal body instantly rose from the ground. Its enormous mouth, capable of devouring the heavens and earth, opened, pointing towards the creature with the body of a human and the body of a snake. One Azure Dragon or Azure Dragon is one of the 4 symbols of Chinese astronomy and also a broad concept in Feng Shui, Yin and Yang, and philosophy. The Azure Dragon is the most sacred creature among the 4 symbols. In ancient times, it was called the Azure Dragon. Its image is that of a dragon long, and its color is green Qing, the color of the wood element in the east, thus corresponding to spring. In Feng Shui, the Azure Dragon corresponds to long mountain ranges or long rivers. For example, with Danglong present-day Hanoi, the Red River flowing in the east is the Azure Dragon. For the imperial city of Hu, Kanhan Islet is located in the middle of the Perfume River, with Danglong to the east. This dense, icy blue mist seemed to have no effect on the Azure Dragon, piercing straight through it. Just then, the dragon turned towards the human-headed serpent, and a clear voice emerged from the crack. Envoy, the people of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom have agreed to help me once. Now, please kill this Azure Dragon. A moment later, a young woman with long, jet black hair and a pure white dress gracefully emerged from the crack. She was incredibly graceful and elegant, without a trace of coldness, but her eyes always gleamed with a sharp light, clearly indicating her unwavering will. Even a fool could see that she was vastly different from the young woman who had just been killed by the Four-Sex Alliance. It was like a firefly compared to the moon. As soon as she appeared, she immediately raised her right hand, and from all 4 directions of the alliance of 4 factions, 4 beams of light suddenly flew out, representing the 5 elements: gold, wood, water, fire, and the 4 spirits. One is missing. She raised her eyebrows. The 5 innate spirits her master had said that this was when Hong Dai was born. Between heaven and earth, the 5 spirits condensed, protecting Hong Dai for life. These 5 spirits, when they first appeared, did not possess late-stage nascent soul cultivation, but rather strengthened along with Hong Dai's cultivation, naturally breaking through at some point. The stronger Hong Dai became, the stronger the 5 spirits would become. This is called karma. No one knew the origin of the 5 spirits. Hong Dai's master, on his deathbed, sacrificed his own cultivation to find a clue. Hong Dai, being a celestial being of the 5 spirits, only had 1 lifetime. After this lifetime, she would transform into a true 5-spirit body, and from then on, her path of cultivation would be forever smooth. However, even though her master had sacrificed his entire cultivation, he couldn't calculate the karmic consequences of Hong Dai's current life. Over time, he set this matter aside, though he still harbored lingering thoughts, waiting for karma to arrive. During this great battle, Hong Dai's master was suddenly enveloped in a radiant glow. She had an epiphany and immediately began calculating. Unexpectedly, she gained some insight into Hong Dai's tribulation. Therefore, when going into battle, Hong Dai had to entrust these 5 spiritual treasures to her senior sister, allowing her to lead the cultivators of the entire country in the alliance of the 4 sects. In reality, everything was based on her master's earlier prediction. Replacing Hong Dai with Shou Tiyu to break through this tribulation was considered fulfilling the tribulation, not avoiding it. Therefore, when Shou Tiyu died, Hong Dai's tribulation would be over, naturally disappearing afterward. That's why Hong Dai was able to escape that rift. But at this moment, she discovered that one of the 5 spirits was unexpectedly missing. She didn't understand why. Suddenly, her heart trembled and her eyes darkened. Behind her stood 8 people. 7 of these 8 people wore the same clothes. They were both male and female. Each of them was elderly. These 7 were the 7 great elders of the Snow Domain Kingdom. Although Hong Dai had entered the Vermilion Bird Kingdom, these 7 still followed to protect her. The last person was a middle-aged man wearing a black robe. This man's face was sallow like wax, full of sickness. Hearing her words, he wearily nodded, took a step forward, and with a single step, reached the Azure Dragon and the creature with the human body and snake body. He looked at the Azure Dragon, smiled slightly and said, "I have no right to kill this dragon, but I can take its bloodline." 1 magic or movement technique that allows a person to move in just a small step, but cover an extremely long distance, feeling as if the ground is contracting. As soon as he finished speaking, he gently raised his right hand, and immediately Chu Wutai above the Azure Dragon trembled violently, bending over and spitting out a mouthful of blood. His body was pushed forcefully, like a shooting star, hurtling towards the ground. Just as he spat out the fresh blood, the middle-aged man casually swung his right hand and grabbed it. Immediately, the fresh blood condensed, turning into a drop of purple blood pearl, which fell into the Azure Dragon's forehead. The Azure Dragon roared furiously, its eyes filled with sorrow, but in those eyes there was a sense of liberation. It looked deeply at the earth, its whole body flickered, and only the dragon's soul flew out from the top of its head and disappeared into the horizon. Without the dragon's soul, the Azure Dragon's enormous body began to turn to stone very quickly, turning into a huge mountain, crashing down from the sky to the ground with a thunderous roar. The Azure Dragon no longer protected the land. Mountains crumbled to the ground with a thunderous roar, like a bell announcing the end of the 4 sects alliance, its echoes reverberating throughout the heavens and earth. The man sighed, turning back to the woman in white, his face once again bearing the same sickly expression. At this moment, the serpent-headed creature had completely emerged from the crevice. The woman in white gracefully floated up, landing on the beast's head, and elegantly pointed downwards. Immediately, it opened its mouth and spewed out a thick, blue mist. This deadly mist spread wildly throughout the space. Regardless of their cultivation level, even those in the nascent soul stage would instantly turn into ice statues upon contact with it. Wang Lin watched the scene intently, his scalp tingling, and took a deep breath of cold air. Although the woman in white was quite far away, the blue mist spread incredibly quickly. Without hesitation, he potted his storage bag, pulled out a straw hat, put it on his head, and quickly flew away, desperately fleeing the deadly mist, running headlong towards Chuatai. Under the brutal onslaught of the blue mist, the entire Forsect alliance, centered around this location, transformed into a world of ice. A group of cultivators from the Forsect alliance frantically flew out, sorrowfully looking at their homes, scattering in all directions, only wanting to escape as quickly as possible. However, how could the snow domain cultivators let them escape peacefully? Wang Lin's speed was extremely fast, and the fate of the Forsect alliance was clear from the middle-aged man's actions just now. It couldn't be changed. This was called eradicating the root cause, and it seemed that the cultivators of the Forsect alliance would find it very difficult to escape. Taking a deep breath, he no longer paid attention to this matter, transforming into a blurry figure, and quickly flew away without daring to stop. Right behind him, that terrifying blue mist was closing in. A single touch would turn him into an ice statue, and Wang Lin didn't want to be an exception. A moment later, his divine consciousness spread far and wide. 1,000 miles ahead, on a snow-covered mountain, was a black hole, inside which was Chuatai. Wang Lin's figure flashed, appearing at the summit of the snow-covered mountain. Without daring to stop for even a moment, he rushed into the hole. As soon as he entered, he saw Chuatai. He wasn't dead, but he was unconscious. Wang Lin snatched his storage bag and, without further delay, immediately fled. The moment he left the mountain, the blue mist had caught up, and the entire mountain had turned into ice. Flying headlong, Wang Lin used his divine consciousness to scan the bag. He quickly became excited. The martial cauldron was indeed in Chuatai's bag. As he put the bag into his chest, Wang Lin's face suddenly turned pale. Before him stood a tower of ice and snow, more than 10 stories high. An old woman emerged from the tower, coldly observing the newcomer, her right hand raised. Wang Lin didn't dare say another word, hastily flying back. He placed his right hand on his forehead, and immediately several core members of the Tang family, whom he had refined into demons, flew out. As soon as the demons appeared, they immediately attacked the old woman. She contemptuously flicked her finger, and the demons were instantly surrounded by blue ice. Wang Lin gritted his teeth and muttered, "Explode, explode, explode." The demons trapped in the blue ice all self-destructed. Several loud bangs followed, turning into a black mist. Wang Lin didn't dare stop, disappearing in an instant, following the black mist. When he reappeared, he was over 1,000 miles away. He continued flying, his right hand on his forehead. Except for Su Liguo, he frantically unleashed all the other demons, leaving only a single explode, before vanishing. After flying like this for a while, Wang Lin realized that all his demons were dead. Although the black mist behind him grew thicker, the stinging sensation in his back hadn't disappeared. "You can't escape," the old woman's deep voice slowly echoed from behind. Suddenly, from within the black mist, a towering ice structure of over 10 stories emerged. At the top of the tower stood the old woman in white, her eyes filled with a sinister glint. Wang Lin dared not look back, continuing his frantic escape. He potted his storage bag, and a nascent soul stage puppet transformed into a wisp of black smoke, condensing behind him. Wang Lin turned, his hands forming a seal, his eyes emitting a crimson light. This crimson light entered the puppet, and Wang Lin shouted, "Go!" Immediately, the puppet, as if possessed, charged furiously towards the pursuing old woman. She remained atop the ice tower, her gaze growing even more contemptuous. With a wave of her right hand, the ice and snow on the ground instantly rose up like a pile of sharp stakes, blocking the puppet. Wang Lin continued to run, muttering to himself, "Explode." The puppet's eyes glowed red, its entire body swelled up, and it exploded with a bang. A nascent soul stage puppet self-destructed with all its cultivation, a power that could be described as incredibly strong. Moreover, when it self-destructed, it still controlled the force of the explosion, not scattering it in all directions, but directing it entirely towards the old woman. At the same time, along with the pressure of the self-destruction, a red light like lightning shot towards her. This red light was Wang Lin's extreme realm. Although it was only equivalent to a transformation god stage cultivator, its effect wasn't great, but it could still cause a great shock to the sea of consciousness. The arrogant old woman didn't even glance at the red light until the nascent soul stage puppet self-destructed. Then she slightly frowned, patted the ice tower with her right hand. And immediately all the windows of the rooms in the tower opened, flashing streams of white light. These streams of white light almost converged in front of her, forming an ice shield more than 10 meters wide. But she never expected that the pink lightning could penetrate her ice shield as if it were nothing. Her expression changed, and she swung her right hand to block in front of her chest. But the lightning flashed, piercing through her hand and directly striking her consciousness. The old woman trembled, her eyes glazed over. But this glazed over disappeared quickly, and she immediately regained her composure. A hint of apprehension appeared in her eyes. That fleeting moment of disorientation was enough to cause the ice shield in front of her to begin to crumble, and at the same time, the pressure from the self-destructing puppet surged forward. The ice shield, without her control, could only withstand a small amount of the attack before dissipating. Almost all the pressure from the explosion hit the old woman directly. At this very moment, she regained her senses, let out a soft grunt, and the white robe she was wearing absorbed the full force of the pressure. With a few popping sounds, all the pressure was dispelled by the magical formation on the robe. When the crimson mist dissipated, her expression changed drastically. She gasped for breath, not daring to delay, and immediately returned to the ice tower, fleeing. From the moment Wang Lin summoned the nascent soul puppet, he had made a decision. He knew this was a life-or-death situation. The white-robed old woman was not just an early-stage transformation god, but very likely had reached the peak of the mid-stage transformation god realm. The people and things today were truly too powerful. Their techniques contained profound natural meanings, and even a single touch could be fatal. Moreover, the difference in cultivation between the two sides was too great, so even if he fled for his life, he couldn't get too far ahead of his opponent. He had made up his mind. This battle absolutely could not be prolonged, otherwise more cultivators from the snow region would notice, and then he would be doomed. A swift and decisive victory. Take advantage of the opponent's complacency and strike quickly. Almost without hesitation, as soon as he threw the nascent soul puppet behind him, he immediately raised his right hand, and from his hand, a thread slowly emerged. The Heavenly Tribulation Thread. Actually, besides that, entering the heaven-defying space to evade was also a method, but unless absolutely necessary. Wang Lin would rather use the Heavenly Tribulation Thread than use the heaven-defying space in front of this old woman. The heaven-defying space was his greatest secret, and it absolutely could not be revealed. Of course, without the Heavenly Tribulation Thread to save his life, he would naturally have no choice but to enter the heaven-defying space. Seizing the moment the old woman was panicking from the extreme realm attack, Wang Lin unleashed the Heavenly Tribulation Thread for the first time. This Heavenly Tribulation Thread was Wang Lin's last resort. It would save him from certain death. Today, to save his life, Wang Lin decisively decided he had to use it. He didn't need to worry too much about this threat. But there were many snow domain cultivators here. He could threaten an old woman, but only if she left and informed other snow domain cultivators would Wang Lin have anything to worry about. It was better to seize the opportunity now and resolve the trouble, using the Heavenly Tribulation Thread to destroy her. That was the best solution. Although it was a little painful, Wang Lin wasn't a sentimental person. Once he made a decision, he wouldn't back down. The Heavenly Tribulation Thread flashed and shot straight up into the sky, immediately creating a layer of red clouds in the air. These clouds were extremely strange, almost instantly becoming dense and covering a large area. Compared to these clouds, the blue mist was too small to be compared. The moment the red clouds descended, the blue mist scattered in all directions, making way for the thread. At this moment, the old woman had also recovered her senses after being shaken by the pressure of the nascent soul puppet explosion. She didn't know what it was, but looking at this blood-red cloud, her intuition told her it was something terrifying. Without hesitation, she immediately entered the ice tower. Meanwhile, on the other side, the four allied factions were surrounding Miss Hong Dai, all staring intently at the strange red cloud. Behind her, the pale, sickly-looking man from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom suddenly transformed. His sickly appearance vanished, and he stared in astonishment at the cloud. Without saying a word, his body flashed, unexpectedly abandoning his duty to protect Hong Dai, leaving her standing there and rushing towards the cloud. At this moment, Wang Lin's face turned pale, his right hand trembling. He saw the old woman enter the ice tower and then fly far away. His eyes flashed, and he concentrated all his physical and mental energy to control the threat of heavenly tribulation. He swung his right hand forcefully, pointing at the fleeing ice tower. Immediately, a tiny red lightning bolt emerged from the crimson clouds in the sky, hurtling at an unparalleled speed, stopping almost instantly at the distant ice tower. At the same time, from within the crimson clouds, as if guided by the lightning bolt, countless lightning bolts suddenly appeared. They intertwined, forming a lightning vortex as thick as an arm, roaring and crashing down from the sky. The old woman inside the ice tower tried to dodge, but found that the space around her seemed bound by some mysterious force, rendering her immobile. Utterly desperate, how could she have imagined that merely chasing after a late-stage nascent soul junior would lead to this calamity? Indeed, even a fool could guess that this was the legendary heavenly tribulation. The crimson heavenly tribulation roared down upon the ice tower, unable to withstand it. Both the ice tower and the old woman inside vanished into thin air, as if they had never existed. Wang Lin took another deep breath, gazing at the heavenly tribulation once more, filled with profound emotion. But he knew this wasn't the time for lamentation. Without hesitation, he turned and continued to flee. However, after only 100 yards, he sensed a terrifyingly powerful divine consciousness suddenly sweeping over him. At that moment, the straw hat on his head flashed with intense golden light, and the divine consciousness immediately retreated. Suddenly, waves of intense heat emanated from the straw hat. This intense heat penetrated deep into his body, and an image flashed through his mind, the middle-aged man who had effortlessly destroyed the rapidly approaching Azure Dragon. A deep sense of dread gripped him. He never imagined this straw hat could be so miraculous. He quickly touched his forehead with his right hand and instantly vanished, entering the heaven-defying space. The crimson heavenly tribulation, which had easily destroyed both the ice tower and the old woman, gradually dissipated, and the red clouds in the sky faded. However, at this moment, the middle-aged scholar from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom suddenly appeared in midair, his eyes blazing with madness, staring intently at the fading heavenly tribulation. He let out a loud roar, raised both hands, and an unimaginably powerful aura emanated from him. Immediately, the already dim and fading red clouds surged back, almost as dense as before. Unfortunately, without the threat of the heavenly tribulation to guide them, the clouds could not continue to condense. In the midst of the space, the middle-aged man was frantically anxious. He knew that encountering this today was incredibly difficult. If he missed it, he didn't know if he would ever encounter such a fortunate opportunity again in his lifetime. But the red cloud could no longer condense. He could only watch helplessly as it slowly dissipated. It was like having mountains of gold and silver before him, wanting to rush forward to seize them, only to find himself facing an immense, bottomless valley insurmountable. He could only stare as the mountains of gold and silver gradually vanished. His stomach churned, and the middle-aged scholar gritted his teeth, biting his index finger and drawing something in the air. A cluster of blood-colored symbols formed before him, each appearing and then immediately flying up into the sky, stopping amidst the red cloud. Gradually, more and more blood-colored symbols sank into the cloud. The cloud briefly stopped dissipating, and he breathed a sigh of relief, but his face instantly turned pale. The red cloud was now incredibly faint, ready to dissipate at any moment, as he had only managed to retain a small portion using his divine abilities. But from all directions, that blue aura continued to surge, rapidly dissipating the cloud. Seeing the precious cloud disappear in an instant, leaving only a trace, the man panicked and shouted angrily, gritting his teeth as he leapt into the remaining crimson cloud. The moment he entered the cloud, a crimson lightning bolt struck him. His face was a mixture of pain and pleasure, but soon, the remaining thin, faint cloud dissipated. The man stood bewildered in midair, his face gloomy and sorrowful. He scanned the area with his divine sense, but apart from the ice tower, he found no other cultivators. There was only a golden light, which he had used to probe it, but unexpectedly caused him pain, forcing him to withdraw his divine sense. When he probed again, the strange golden light had vanished. His heart sank, and he clasped his hands together, raising his voice. "Reverend fellow Taoist who can guide the heavenly tribulation, I am Izzy of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. I beg your assistance in guiding this tribulation, and I will be deeply grateful." After waiting for a long time without any reaction from any direction, the middle-aged man sighed inwardly, then angrily snorted, and with a flick of his hand, a tragic cry came from afar. A thick arm, still stained with blue blood, flew towards him from a distance. He caught it in his hand, snorted, and the arm instantly shattered. The human-headed, snake-bodied beast was left with only one arm, its head still resting on the head of the white-robed girl. Its eyes, though calm, held a few sparks of anger. The man snorted coldly and spoke slowly. Hong Dai said nothing, and the 6 or 7 people behind her were also angry, but dared not speak. The middle-aged man moved slightly and was once again standing behind Hong Dai, returning to his sickly appearance. The majority of the cultivators of the Four-Sect Alliance had perished after a year of encirclement and suppression, with only a small number remaining, living in seclusion in the snow region. Time passed slowly, spring giving way to autumn. Hong Dai stayed in this new snow region kingdom for a year, then followed the middle-aged man to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. As for Wu Ding, the cultivators of the snow region had conducted a massive search, but ultimately it seemed they couldn't find him. They analyzed that he was likely in the hands of the Four-Sect Alliance cultivators. The territory, which originally belonged to the Alliance of Four Factions, was occupied by Snow Abyss monks. A large number of ordinary people from the Snow Abyss Kingdom began to migrate, and the snow and wind continued to blow, leaving this new Snow Abyss Kingdom still shrouded in cold. The monks of the Snow Domain Kingdom erected countless ice towers in this place. 3 years later, this entire vast land completely became the new Snow Domain Kingdom. Time continued to flow relentlessly, and 5 years later, about 30,000 miles from the border of the Snow Domain Kingdom, on an ice plain, a 7-colored light flashed, and a phantom figure gradually appeared. It was Wang Lin. The heaven-defying pearl, after absorbing the 5 elements of Earth, underwent a strange transformation. Normally, even if Wang Lin avoided the heaven-defying within the pearl, he would definitely not be able to last for 5 years. But after the Earth attribute reached its peak, the time Wang Lin could stay inside the heavenly space far exceeded before. Another crucial point was that the 5 elements of Earth in the pearl had now reached their peak, which also caused a series of changes. Originally, there was no spiritual energy inside, but unexpectedly, a trace of spiritual energy existed. This spiritual energy was purer than that outside. However, Wang Lin had never seen the aura of the immortal realm before, so he couldn't compare it, but in his perception, it was probably slightly inferior to the aura of the immortal realm. Furthermore, the biggest change was the appearance of long streaks of light in this heaven-defying space. They all condensed into a single entity, forming 5 enormous light clusters in the air within the heaven-defying space. 3 of these clusters emitted a brilliant golden light. One, although also shimmering, was very dim, and the last cluster was completely dark and gloomy, emitting no light at all. For years, Wang Lin had been observing these 5 light clusters in the heaven-defying space. With his intelligence, he could clearly deduce that these 5 light clusters were closely related to the heaven-defying pearl's absorption of the 5 elemental attributes. In fact, these 5 light clusters might even represent the 5 elemental spirits that the heaven-defying pearl possessed. The 3 brilliant light clusters represented the water, fire, and earth attributes. The flickering light cluster likely represents the wood attribute. The dim, gloomy light cluster at the end probably represents the metal attribute. After observing for several years in the heaven-defying space, he gradually developed a very strange feeling. These 5 light clusters weren't inanimate objects. They might even contain some kind of life. If it were someone else, even with slightly higher cultivation than Wang Lin, it would be difficult to recognize this. Wang Lin, however, once, while cultivating his intent, using the unique aspect of cultivating the heavenly Tao cycle of life and death, sensed that these light clusters possess life. This discovery greatly increased his interest in these 5 light clusters. Sichu Nan once recounted that, back then, when the heaven-defying pearl appeared, it was spotted by powerful cultivators in the Vermilion Bird Kingdom and other planets, causing him to face a near-death experience. His body was shattered, and his nascent soul entered the heaven-defying pearl. Luckily, he didn't die. After a series of transformations, he finally escaped the pursuit of this cultivator. Countless years later, it lay inside the belly of a flying bird until it was picked up by Wang Lin. Today, Wang Lin has kept the heaven-defying pearl for over 400 years, but he still cannot guess its true function. It seems that the pearl can only prolong time to a certain extent and can transform ordinary land and water into something containing spiritual power. This effect is very useful for cultivators below the transformation god stage, but it doesn't mean much to cultivators above the transformation god stage. In any case, those with true supernatural powers cannot absorb the spiritual energy of this world. Only the energy of the immortal realm can stir their hearts. Therefore, the spiritual energy created by this pearl is not worth much to them. Only the heaven-defying space is worth a little more. But it's impossible for this point alone to lead to the frenzied struggle competition among the cultivators of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom and the top cultivators of other planets. Wang Lin believes that he hasn't yet discovered the miraculous uses of the heaven-defying pearl. Those uses are the real reason why those powerful cultivators are fighting over it. Sichunan also said that, based on his years of research and analysis, only when the 5 elemental spirits are fully gathered can the heaven-defying pearl truly find a master. At that time, its miraculous abilities might manifest to some extent. Up until now, Wang Lin's interest in the true miraculous uses of the heaven-defying pearl had never diminished over the past 400 years. On the contrary, it had only deepened. He even imagined whether these 5 light clusters could transform into the 5 element spirits like the one possessed by the girl in white. Of course, this was still just speculation. Standing in the territory of the new snow domain, Wang Lin gazed around with a sense of awe. For the past few years in the heaven-defying space, besides observing the 5 element light clusters, he had simply sat in silence, gradually comprehending his own heavenly Tao of reincarnation. Logically speaking, the time he had spent in the heaven-defying space had already exceeded reality by 10 years. But it seemed that under the heavenly Tao's concept of life and death reincarnation, this time the heaven-defying pearl's ability to reverse time had also lost its effect. 5 years had passed outside, and inside had also passed a very long time. Or was it still 5 years? This puzzled him somewhat. At this moment, he clearly felt his current cultivation level. In just 4 more years of comprehending the life and death realm, he could enter the God transformation stage and become a true divine power cultivator. He believed that when he reached the God transformation stage, if he were to encounter that mid-stage God transformation old woman again, he could confidently face her even without using the heavenly tribulation. At this point, emerging from the heaven-defying space, Wang Lin was also helpless. The heaven-defying pearl was constantly changing. 5 years inside was the limit, and he couldn't return anytime soon. Sighing, he didn't fly, but slowly walked forward. He had long since put away his straw hat and continued walking across the icy, snowy fields. The icy wind lashed against his face, chilling him to the bone. Wang Lin took a deep breath. After a long while, an ice city appeared in his sight. In the very center of this fortress stood a massive tower, over 30 stories high, its summit adorned with a pearl emitting a strange light. This vast land had become the new kingdom of the snow region cultivators. Wang Lin had no right to interfere in this matter. He simply wanted to find a quiet and peaceful place to spend these crucial 4 years. Upon entering the ice city, he was surprised to find himself completely an ordinary mortal. The Snow Abyss Kingdom also had mortals. After migrating to the new kingdom, these mortals, with the help of cultivators, built a massive ice fortress. Wang Lin appeared silently within the fortress, looking at the strange ice buildings everywhere, feeling a sense of wonder. Inside the city, there weren't many people walking around, and even the inns and taverns were extremely small and few in number. The entire city was mostly filled with ice sculptors. Almost every house had a person holding a chisel, sitting before a large block of ice, constantly tapping and carving out some seemingly rough but strangely captivating works. Along the way, Wang Lin saw very few people talking to each other. They weren't rushing about their daily affairs, but were all focused on their ice carving work. Moreover, whenever a successful ice sculpture was created, many people would rush to help carry it and place it inside the massive ice tower in the center of the city. After it was placed there, someone would come out from inside the ice tower to receive the newly formed ice sculpture. Silently pondering, Wang Lin realized that his presence here seemed rather unusual. Seeing that many people had noticed him, he sighed and turned to find a secluded spot to disappear. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. During this year, Wang Lin's footsteps had traversed the entire Snow Domain Kingdom, visiting almost every city. No one paid much attention to him because his attire was quite similar to that of the locals, all made of bark and animal fur. After a year of wandering, Wang Lin had learned quite a bit about the people of the Snow Domain Kingdom. These people's sole reason for survival is to serve the Snow Abyss monks, exchanging their ice sculptures for the necessities of life. Within the Snow Domain Kingdom, there was no such thing as a mortal royal family. Each city was owned by a powerful cultivator. Wang Lin also knew why they created so many ice sculptures. After these ice sculptures were completed, a specialized cultivator would stand before a formation and use a special method to activate them, transforming them into puppets. This method was somewhat strange, and it contained some of the Snow Domain cultivator's essence. Wang Lin studied it extensively but couldn't grasp the key points. As for these ice sculpture puppets, most of them didn't remain in the Snow Domain Kingdom but were traded to other countries. The price varied depending on the cultivation level of the puppets. The most expensive were puppets with nascent soul cultivation. Wang Lin noticed that these nascent soul puppets were extremely rare in the cities, and many of them failed to be made. Next came puppets at the core formation stage and lower. As for puppets with the cultivation level of the nascent soul stage, Wang Lin had yet to see any city producing them. Such puppets were not easy to create. In fact, they were impossible. If that weren't the case, wouldn't the Snow Region Kingdom's strength have reached an unimaginable level? In his year here, Wang Lin had seen hundreds of ice statues purchased in large quantities by several fourth-tier cultivation nations more than 3 times. These ice statues were the foundation of the Snow Region Kingdom and also the way they obtained all their essential supplies. Furthermore, in areas within the Four-Sect Alliance, wherever there were spiritual veins, there were many ordinary people exploiting them. It could be said that in the Snow Region Kingdom, ordinary people were slaves. Everything they did was to serve the cultivators. But what Wang Lin found most unbelievable was that these ordinary people unexpectedly considered being slaves to cultivators a great honor, without any resistance whatsoever. Even if he were to die from exhaustion, he wouldn't utter a single word of complaint. After a year here, Wang Lin came to a conclusion. The Snow Domain Kingdom was an incredibly strange country, almost unbelievable. Another thing that astonished him was that almost every mortal carried a small ice statue, symbolizing the highest-ranking cultivator in the city. Regardless of how exhausted they were, or even if they only had a minute left to live, every morning upon waking and every evening before going to bed, they would respectfully place this small ice statue before them, kneeling and worshipping with utmost devotion. All these unbelievable things gave Wang Lin a strange feeling towards the Snow Domain Kingdom. This country, like the perpetually cold ice and snow, lacked any vitality or vibrancy. Today was no different. A heavy atmosphere pervaded everywhere. After a year of traveling, Wang Lin chose to settle in a small town. Although he didn't like it, using ice sculptures to create puppets was a miraculous form of magic, which greatly piqued his interest. Wang Lin was carving wooden statues, and if he could learn this type of magic, using it on wooden statues would certainly provide another way to protect his life. Furthermore, another important reason why Wang Lin didn't want to leave was that the people here lacked vitality and life force, existing in a bizarre and unusual state. Wang Lin believed this state greatly benefited his experience of the life and death realm. This place was a small town on the border near the Snow Domain Kingdom. When Wang Lin arrived, the town wasn't large and the population wasn't very dense. It was guarded by a late-stage core formation cultivator. 2 days after Wang Lin arrived, the cultivator disappeared. However, apart from Wang Lin, no one else knew about his disappearance. By the 3rd day, Wang Lin had transformed into that person's form and emerged from the ice and snow tower. Wang Lin had used the soul-devouring method to capture the memories of the nascent soul cultivator. Wang Lin didn't kill him, but merely controlled him within the tower for future use. Originally, with that person's cultivation level, he wasn't qualified to possess the ice and snow tower. However, because he had an uncle in his clan who held some prestige among the Snow Region cultivators, the small town was entrusted to him. That's how he obtained the 11-story ice and snow tower. Through that person's memories, Wang Lin learned that the famous girl from the Snow Region Kingdom was named Hong Dai. Several years ago, she left with cultivators from the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. Besides the 7 great elders, 13 young but powerful cultivators from the Snow Region also left with them. The mission of those 13 to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom was only one: to receive the grand initiation ceremony. Hong Deep's requirement upon joining the Vermilion Bird Kingdom was to elevate the Snow Domain Kingdom to a 5th-level cultivation nation, while simultaneously securing a new position. At this point, the second requirement had been fulfilled, leaving only the first. All the cultivators of the Snow Domain Kingdom understood this to some extent. The core formation cultivator in the small town, due to his connection with that uncle, knew more. For a 4th-level cultivation nation to advance to a 5th level, it required a nascent soul stage cultivator. The grand initiation ceremony is an extremely powerful and heaven-defying magic. Each person only has one chance, and the failure rate is extremely high. Only success allows one to immediately reach the nascent soul stage. However, it has a drawback: lifespan. Regardless of one's previous life, after receiving the ceremony, one's lifespan is reduced to only 100 years. Furthermore, that person's cultivation level will remain at the early stage of the nascent soul realm for their entire life, with no possibility of breakthrough. There is also no way to change this. The cycle of heavenly Tao only lasts 100 years. After 100 years, death is inevitable. Therefore, given the shortened lifespan and the single opportunity, only top-tier cultivators would willingly attempt it. After all, their lifespans are already limited. If just one of these 13 succeeds, the Snow Domain Kingdom will have 100 years to reach the 5th level. Within those 100 years, one of the 7 great elders who follow Hong Dai will surely reach the nascent soul realm. This will slightly solidify the position of the 5th level cultivation kingdom. This is what the Vermilion Bird Kingdom agreed to, and it is also the condition Hong Dai agreed to. Therefore, for the Snow Abyss Kingdom, which was about to become a 5th level cultivation nation, all the neighboring 4th level cultivation nations had resigned themselves and prepared to become dependent states. This is a long-standing rule of the Cultivation Alliance. It's not a rule of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom either. No cultivator has the right to resist or change it. If they resist, they will surely die. Wang Lin walked out of the Ice and Snow Tower, where 2 foundation establishment cultivators were standing. When they saw Wang Lin, they respectfully addressed him as master. Wang Lin nodded, saying nothing. He knew that the person he was transforming into had 3 disciples. Among them, a woman with some beauty was the third. She was favored by the core formation cultivator and had some duties to attend to. Such incidents are not uncommon in other cultivation countries. However, they are usually kept secret. But in the Snow Domain Kingdom, such things are perfectly normal. According to the memories of a foundation establishment cultivator, stories like his and his disciples in the Snow Domain Kingdom are numerous. It has become something everyone knows, and no one pays any attention to it. In that person's memory, there was once animosity towards the heavenly beauty Hong Dai. If it weren't for others, she would probably have had to serve her master. Regarding such matters, Wang Lin could only smile wryly, his impression of the Snow Domain Kingdom worsening. As for the young man before him, at first glance, he didn't seem young anymore, but he was in second place. He usually showed respect and fear towards his master, but secretly harbored jealousy towards his master and his 3rd junior sister. Wang Lin knew all this from the memories of the core formation cultivator. Originally, he intended to find an opportunity to send that disciple out soon to avoid trouble. Have you got any new ice embryos yet? Wang Lin clasped his hands behind his back and spoke slowly. Ice embryos is the term used by snow region cultivators for ice sculptures. The second disciple hurriedly and respectfully said, "Master, 2 snow immortal ice embryos have just arrived." Wang Lin nodded slightly and said, "Bring them out so I can see if your techniques have improved." Wang Lin, having grasped the memories, was very familiar with the method of creating ice sculpture puppets. However, this method was related to a special cultivation technique of the snow region cultivators called the ice purification technique. Wang Lin examined it and found that the technique was quite ingenious. When a cultivator from the snow region absorbs the earth's spiritual energy, they also absorb the icy coldness of the snow and ice. After absorbing this cold energy, their physique gradually changes. It can cause a nascent soul cultivator, upon leaving their body, to transform into a giant snowman. However, this cultivation method also has a set level requirement. The cultivator that Wang Lin transformed into had only learned the first 4 layers of the incantation. This was secretly given to him by his uncle in the clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to dream of mastering the first 4 layers of the cultivation method. The second disciple hastily nodded in agreement. He potted his storage bag, and instantly two ice sculptures, each over 3 meters tall, appeared on the ground. The ice sculptures depicted a creature with a bird's head and a beast's body. At first glance, they looked ferocious. During his year of travel, Wang Lin knew that the ice sculptures were one of the snow immortal guardian beasts of the Snow Region Kingdom. The second disciple's gaze focused, and he sat down cross-legged. Then his left hand formed a hand seal, rapidly changing its position. Finally, a stream of black snow appeared. At the same time, he bit the tip of his right finger, scooped up some snow, and then placed his finger on the ice sculpture. Instantly, a stream of black energy quickly flowed from his fingertip into the ice sculpture, forming something resembling a meridian. The second disciple's forehead was covered in sweat. He took a deep breath and once again scooped up some black snow with his right hand, then placed it on the ice sculpture. Instantly, another meridian appeared inside the ice sculpture. At this moment, the snow in the second disciple's left hand suddenly disappeared. His face turned pale, and he hurriedly sat down cross-legged. Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but he understood in his heart. According to the memories of a core formation cultivator, the Snow Immortal Ice sculpture needed 9 meridians to complete the first step. While he was deep in thought, a female disciple suddenly approached, a hint of seduction in her eyes, and whispered, "Master, you haven't answered my questions for several days. Today, my cultivation has experienced a change. I hope to receive your guidance tonight." Wang Lin, who was contemplating the effects of the snow meridians within the ice sculpture's body, nodded upon hearing the woman's words and said, "Speak, what change has occurred?" The female disciple was slightly taken aback, glancing around. Suddenly, her face flushed, and she softly said, "Master, is this the place to speak?" Wang Lin nodded, but immediately he remembered that in the memories of the nascent soul cultivator, a female disciple saying such things had a different meaning. Thinking this, he was about to speak when, unexpectedly, the female disciple's face turned bright red. She glanced at Wang Lin and patted herself. More than half of her clothes immediately fell off. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. The woman's clothes returned to normal. His expression grew cold, and he glanced at her. Seeing this, the woman shuddered. Her face turned pale, and she quickly knelt on the ground. After a while, she cautiously stood up. She was in a state of panic, unsure of what her master intended to do. Meanwhile, the second disciple finished regulating his breathing. After opening his eyes and glancing at her, he remained silent. His left hand continued to perform the incantation, condensing black snow and beginning the process of creating the 9 meridians. It took the second disciple several hours to create all 9 meridians. He spent most of that time recovering. Therefore, creating the ice sculpture was a considerable burden for him. After completing the 9 meridians, the second disciple took a deep breath and knelt before the ice sculpture, his face pale. After muttering prayers for a while, he gritted his teeth and placed his right hand on the point where the 9 meridians converged. Instantly, the second disciple spat out fresh blood, flying back more than 10 meters before crashing heavily to the ground. Meanwhile, the ice sculpture, with its 9 meridians moving like nimble snakes, finally shattered. 2 of the ice meridians collided, producing a loud explosion. The entire ice sculpture instantly turned into a pile of ice. The second disciple's face turned pale, and he muttered shamefully, "I failed again." Wang Lin ignored him. His eyes flickered, and he pondered for a moment. He was combining the memories of a core formation cultivator to gradually understand the crucial point of creating an ice sculpture puppet. At this moment, Wang Lin suddenly looked up into the distance. He saw a beam of sword light hurtling towards him. Inside the sword light was a young man with a dignified and extraordinary appearance and elegant clothes. Although his clothing differed slightly from that of the cultivators of the country, it was only a slight difference. The third disciple, a woman, stood beside him. Her eyes lit up, and she let out a soft sigh, saying, "Senior brother has returned." The second disciple, standing more than 10 yards away, had a fleeting glint of gloom in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by joy. Based on the memories of the Foundation establishment cultivator, Wang Lin could sense that the cultivator was somewhat pleased with the first disciple. Moreover, this person had at least some blood relation to the Foundation establishment cultivator. The first disciple could also be considered a genius. He had reached the great perfection of the Foundation establishment stage in less than 100 years. only a little more than he would reach the golden core stage. But according to the Foundation Establishment Cultivator's memories, what he liked most about the first disciple was his appearance. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator intended for this person to cultivate together with a female disciple of a late-stage Foundation Establishment Cultivator, thus forming an alliance between the two sides. Wang Lin merely glanced at this matter without paying much attention. At this moment, the sword light was approaching. After arriving in front of the ice and snow tower, the senior disciple lifted his robe, knelt on the ground, and said in a loud voice, "Your disciple greets Master. I am fortunate to have not disgraced your command and have found the hiding place of the remnants of the sect." Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged. He remembered this matter well, because in the memories of the core formation cultivators, this matter was also mentioned. The senior disciple went out because in recent days someone said they had encountered a mysterious person. Therefore, the core formation cultivators sent the senior disciple to investigate. Such things have not been uncommon in recent years. The remnants of the four sects, no matter how high their cultivation, have been damaged by the ice and snow over the past few days. Although that is said, it cannot be taken lightly. Therefore, when such things happen, they all report to the Ice and Snow Divine Temple so that the temple can send people to handle it. This kind of thing is of great concern to the temple. Almost immediately after reporting today, someone will arrive tomorrow. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, his eyes calm, then opened his mouth and said, "Lead the way." The eldest disciple was stunned. In the past, when faced with such situations, his master had never personally risked his life. But he didn't ask many questions, so he quickly nodded and stood up to lead the way. The second and third disciples exchanged glances. After a moment of hesitation, they both followed. After all, their master had personally intervened. If they didn't go, they might face trouble later. Therefore, both of them tried their best to keep up with Wang Lin. The four of them transformed into four streaks of sword light and flew away. After a short while, the eldest disciple stopped, pointed to a mountain covered in ice and snow, and said, "I saw that person disappear here with my own eyes. There must be a place for them to hide under the mountain." Wang Lin's divine sense swept over. His expression remained unchanged, but his eyes were extremely focused. "The three of you stay here." After speaking, Wang Lin flew forward. His divine sense had detected a forbidden formation below the mountain. Outside the formation, two divine senses were fluctuating. One had only reached the core formation stage. The other was somewhat strange, sometimes appearing to be at the core formation stage, sometimes at the nascent soul stage, and even occasionally fluctuating like the transformation god stage. This phenomenon could only be explained by one thing. This person's divine sense was on the verge of dissipating, causing their cultivation to become chaotic. Wang Lin landed on the mountain. Then, immediately, his entire body sank down, quickly rushing towards the forbidden formation. In an instant, he reached the formation. As long as it was a forbidden formation, Wang Lin had nothing to worry about. He glanced at it and immediately had an idea. He mobilized his right hand, creating a circle of light to form the forbidden formation. Immediately, the two formations merged together. Wang Lin calmly stepped through the formation and entered inside. As soon as he entered, he saw the light of flying swords flash before him. More than 10 streams of sword energy formed from the flying swords quickly rushed towards him. Wang Lin's eyes remained calm. He raised his right hand, casually pointed, and whispered, "Life." The cycle of the heavenly Tao, the endless changes of life and death, suddenly condensed on his fingertip under Wang Lin's single point. That point looked extremely gentle, yet it contained the heavenly Tao. It was like the seemingly superficial gesture of an immortal, yet it held profound mystery. A terrified scream erupted from within the sword light. Everyone's flying swords broke free from their control, spinning around Wang Lin's fingertip. A ray of light even appeared on the swords' bodies. Within that light, the flying swords seemed to come alive. The spiritual power emanating from the flying swords was several times stronger than before. However, the divine consciousness on the flying swords was erased by the power of the heavenly Tao. Wang Lin's strange gaze fell upon a figure not far away. At this moment, that person was wide-eyed, mouth agape, unable to speak. Behind the young man was an ice bed. An old man sat cross-legged on it, his eyes closed, his face alternating between green and red. Wang Lin flicked his finger. Instantly, more than 10 flying swords stopped and fell to the ground, their clangs echoing. Only then did the young man regain his senses. His eyes showed resentment, his hands clenched, and he shouted, "You destroyed my home, and now you chased me all the way here. Do you only let me go after killing me? Even if you kill us today, someone will come to destroy your snow domain kingdom someday." His voice betrayed deep-seated hatred. Wang Lin glanced at the young man, then observed the old man behind him. The young man immediately moved, blocking Wang Lin's view. After a moment's thought, he knelt down, biting his lip tightly. Fresh blood trickled from his lips, causing him to speak painfully. "Don't kill my master. Kill me instead. I am the young sect master of the Water Ink sect. If you capture me and bring me back, you will surely gain merit. As long as you spare my master, I am willing to follow you. Otherwise, you will only have my corpse." Although his eyes remained calm, his expression changed slightly. Wang Lin looked at the young man for a moment, then at the old man. Then he slowly said, "Why would you exchange your life for your master's life?" The young man remained silent. After a while, he managed to speak. "If the old man hadn't been implicated because of me, he could have left long ago. It's all my fault, because he saved me. Huaner, get up. This person is not a monk from the snow region." The old man, sitting cross-legged on the ice bed, slowly opened his eyes. The young man was stunned, his face instantly brightening with joy. He hurriedly stood up, his face filled with excitement, and said, "Master, you've woken up." Wang Lin glanced at the old man and bowed, saying, "Junior greets the senior of the Water Ink sect." The old man coughed a few times, the red on his face deepening. Wang Lin, having grasped the essence of life and death, could tell at a glance that the old man's body was enveloped in a death aura. Clearly, he had reached his limit. The old man raised his head, looked at Wang Lin, and slowly said, "Young friend, I am injured and unable to receive you properly. Please forgive me. May I ask what brings you here?" Wang Lin sighed softly and said, "The place where you are hiding has been discovered by the snow domain cultivators. Please leave." After saying this, he thought for a moment and took out a bottle of pills from his storage bag. With a flick of his hand, the pills slowly floated towards the bed. "Senior, you are severely injured. This bottle of pills doesn't have a healing effect, but it can alleviate the pain caused by the dissipation of your cultivation, allowing you to leave. The world is vast. There will surely be opportunities to restore your cultivation." The old man smiled, but still ignored the pills, saying, "Young friend, although I don't know which sect you belong to, you know that if I wanted to run, I would have left long ago. Although I could have left at the risk of my life. Do you know why I didn't leave?" Wang Lin thought for a moment and shook his head. "Because this is my home. I was born here, and I will die here." The old man's voice was low, but at this moment, a certain aura of authority emanated from him. Wang Lin glanced at the old man and said nothing more. He clasped his hands together and turned to leave. His purpose in coming here was not to kill, but to help. After all, he had been in the Four Sects Alliance for over 30 years and had even witnessed the invasion of the Snow Region cultivators firsthand. Although he couldn't change the truth within his capabilities, if he could help, he would. The moment Wang Lin turned and left, the old man lowered his head to look at the bottle of pills, then sighed. His right hand suddenly swung up, and a fan with only 2 feathers left flew out from his sleeve. "Young friend, here's a gift for you in return for the pills." After Wang Lin took the fan, his expression suddenly changed. He remembered this treasure very clearly. That year, during the 9-person killing formation of the Four Sects Alliance, the white-robed woman used this very fan. Wang Lin remembered that after her death, this fan was picked up by a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. He turned and looked closely at the old man, immediately recognizing him as the same late-stage nascent soul cultivator who had shaken heaven and earth back then. But all his glory had now become a memory. Wang Lin left with a very complicated heart. After leaving the ice mountain, the 3 disciples didn't dare ask any questions and silently followed him. After Wang Lin left for a while, 2 people, 1 old and 1 young, emerged from the ice mountain. They glanced in the direction Wang Lin had disappeared and quickly left. At the border area, the old man opened a passage on the luminous circle. Then he gave half a bottle of medicine to the young man. With a kind gaze, he whispered, "Go." From now on, you must rely on yourself. Your master cannot protect you." The young man's eyes showed a sorrowful expression, as if he wanted to say something, but the old man waved his hand, pushing him out of the circle of light. Then, the circle of light returned to normal. The young man stood outside the circle of light, staring at his master in astonishment. Then, he knelt on the ground, his eyes red, and cried out, "Master!" The old man laughed heartily and swallowed half a bottle of elixir in his hand. After that, his aura surged. At this moment, he had restored his peak cultivation, but it was only temporary. He flicked his sleeve. His body suddenly moved, and he darted in one direction. That place was the Ice and Snow Divine Palace. Even if he died, he would die in his homeland. Even if he died, he would die protecting his country. Everything was for his own honor and the honor of his nation. Even if he was a dying flame, he had to shine like the phoenix's fire. Even if his wings were broken, he had to soar high in the sky. He closed off his heart, abandoning the world of the past. Everything that had existed before now seemed distant. In the wind, there were no longer the cries of fear and lamentation from the enemy. All that remains is the melancholy of oneself. Closing off the heart is like isolating oneself from a glorious past, leaving only the praises of future generations. Yesterday, I recited poetry, but there was no one to respond. All the whispered words were spoken, yet not a single note of music could be heard. Throwing open the door, I longed to embrace a little warm sunlight. Today's dream is only a distant hope. Even an ordinary person desires to have no regrets in their heart, to stand under the vast sky and feel the essence of heaven and earth. Opening one's soul is like welcoming a warm spring breeze, awakening one. Even a dying flame must still shine brightly like the phoenix's fire. Even with broken wings, one must still soar high in the sky. Watching his master's figure disappear, all the memories flooded into his mind. He bowed several times, clenched his fists, and turned to leave. "I, Chen Huan, swear here, in this life, I will definitely destroy the Snow Domain Kingdom." Wang Lin returned to the Ice and Snow Tower with many complex thoughts in his heart. Even though he had recovered the damaged magic treasure, he wasn't particularly happy. A sense of melancholy still lingered. At this moment, Wang Lin's understanding of the life and death realm had increased a little. He had come to understand more about what life and death truly meant. That question kept swirling in Wang Lin's mind. The late-stage nascent soul cultivator of the water insect, carrying a glimmer of his final brilliance, flew towards the statue of the Ice and Snow Divine Temple and self-destructed, staining the temple a vivid red. Even those who besieged and tried to kill the nascent soul cultivator perished. All glory ultimately vanished with the wind. His death awakened the hidden cultivators of the Four-Sex Alliance who dared not reveal themselves. A year passed in the blink of an eye. During that year, Wang Lin continued to ponder the meaning between life and death. Gradually, he understood more and more the meaning he had comprehended. In the past year, he was like undergoing a transformation. He saw mountains as mountains, and water as water. But during this time, sometimes Wang Lin saw mountains that were not mountains, and water that was not water. Those things seemed shrouded in a layer of mist, making it impossible for him to see them, although he could still feel them. It was like being able to detect them, but unable to touch them. These things cannot be understood simply by having time. They require profound understanding. Spring passed and autumn arrived. 2 years had passed since the snow began to fall. Wang Lin had made some progress in his research on ice puppets. The ice puppets outside relied primarily on snow meridians for maintenance. With the movement of 49 snow meridians, the puppet could be equivalent to a mid-stage core formation cultivator. To be equivalent to a nascent soul cultivator, 9981 snow meridians were required. In ice puppets, the more snow meridians there were, the more difficult it was to control them. Even a slight mistake would cause the puppet to malfunction. Therefore, each additional meridian increased the difficulty several times over. Thus, 81 meridians were incredibly difficult to cultivate. This was also why puppets equivalent to nascent soul cultivators in the snow region were so rare. On the other hand, the creation of the snow meridians of the puppet is related to the cultivation techniques of the snow domain cultivators. After studying those techniques, Wang Lin was astonished. The ice and snow technique focuses on cultivating the mind. This technique uses ice to transform the bones and snow to condense the mind, this creating an ice and snow soul. Through this, the mind can reach a state as pure as ice. The mystery of this technique is indescribable. This is the reason why snow domain cultivators can achieve such a high degree of control over their cultivation methods. Furthermore, they can cultivate their temperament. Otherwise, how could they achieve the goal of cultivating their minds when descending to the mortal world living as ordinary people? The more Wang Lin learned about the Ice and Snow Kingdom, the more he felt the terrifying nature of this technique. This technique cannot be said to follow the righteous path. It is certainly against the heavens. Wang Lin even felt that, compared to the cultivation method of the Six Desires Demon Lord, although different, it had the same effect. Wang Lin didn't intend to cultivate this method himself, but only to imitate it a little. He changed the snow meridians into blood meridians, using fresh blood in combination with the life and death realm to achieve his goal of control. In the blink of an eye, Wang Lin had been in the small town for 3 years. Adding 1 year of traveling, that's 4 years in total. Only 1 year remained until the 10-year period. Wang Lin could sense that the God transformation stage was approaching. He didn't know if the God transformation stage would be able to cause the heavens and earth to change color. But the closer it got, the more Wang Lin could sense that a God transformation cultivator would be noticed by all the surrounding cultivators. Therefore, one day, Wang Lin left the Ice and Snow Tower. Before he left, the Ice and Snow Divine Palace issued a decree summoning all cultivators from the core formation stage to the temple for a grand ceremony. Because one of the 13 cultivators who went to the Vermilion Bird Kingdom had returned. And that person was also the only one who successfully reached the nascent soul stage. One of those 13 succeeded. Whether this was due to the influence of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom or not, outsiders couldn't know. Wang Lin quietly left. The core formation stage cultivator he had imprisoned in the tower for 3 years had lost his memory due to Wang Lin's divine power. But by now, he had recovered his identity. At the border of the Snow Region Kingdom, Wang Lin turned around and looked back. Scenes from the past few decades flashed through his mind. Finally, he sighed and turned to leave. Wang Lin's destination was the Zhao Kingdom, a place where he had prepared to achieve the God transformation stage. The reason he chose to return to Zhao Kingdom to achieve the God transformation stage was not only because of the remote location, but also because of another reason. From that respected late-stage God transformation cultivator, Wang Lin understood a feeling he had long overlooked, the feeling of home. Everyone has a home. If Zhao Kingdom could be considered a home, then the woman waiting for him in the distant cultivation Demon Sea was his second home. Perhaps there was a place that could be his third home. Therefore, he chose Zhao Kingdom as the place to achieve God transformation. Before returning to Zhao Kingdom, Wang Lin passed through Dan Yu's village in the neighboring country. From afar, he could see that Dan Yu had opened a blacksmith shop in the village. Although his wife was no longer young, she was pregnant again. Wang Lin smiled at the scene before him. A new life was beginning to take shape. Before leaving, Wang Lin infused a stream of spiritual power into Dan Yu's wife's body. This spiritual power not only protected them, but also revealed to him that the new life was a girl. Dan Yu remained unaware. He still longed to see his Uncle Wang again. Until his death, Dan Yu's greatest regret wasn't not seeing little Niu, but not being able to see his Uncle Wang again. The 2 sculpted statues were given to his children after his death, becoming a family heirloom. Wang Lin then flew back towards Zhao Kingdom. 40 years ago, he had taken a similar path to reach the nascent soul stage. Today, he returned to Zhao Kingdom along the same route, this time to prepare for the transformation god stage. After passing through several ancient teleportation arrays, one day, Wang Lin was flying over a strange land. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Dark clouds appeared, obscuring the sun. A single raindrop fell from the sky. The rain intensified, almost turning into a curtain of water. Wang Lin looked up. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a heavy downpour. Standing in the rain, he couldn't help but recall the time at the Hengyu sect, in Zhang Hu's room. Back then, it was also a torrential downpour with terrifying thunder and lightning. Now, in the sky, lightning bolts intertwined, creating a deafening roar. The continuous lightning nets made the gloomy sky even more beautiful. Wang Lin slowly descended. He didn't use any magic to block the rain. Instead, as he landed, he waved his hand towards the trees. Instantly, leaves coalesced into an umbrella. Holding the umbrella, Wang Lin strolled leisurely through the unfamiliar forest. After passing through to ancient teleportation arrays, he had returned to Zhao Kingdom. About 4,000 miles east of his current location was another ancient teleportation array. In the mountains and forests, the torrential rain stirred a myriad of emotions. Not far from him stood an ancient temple. The temple was clearly abandoned. The main pink gate was faded and rotten in places. Even the bronze rings on the gate were no longer bright, with a hint of green in some areas. Xie Yiming hadn't seen many temples before. In fact, they were extremely rare. Looking at the temple, Wang Lin stepped inside. It was an ancient temple. There were no statues inside, only a few cushions scattered on the ground. After observing for a while, Wang Lin tilted his head to look at the temple gate, then glanced around. Finally, his gaze fell on the rain outside, trying to grasp a subtle, almost imperceptible scene. A moment later, a shout echoed from afar. Several burly men in raincoats were seen storming towards him. "Damn it, the drainpipe just won't stop being opened," they said. "There's a temple ahead. Let's take shelter there. We can continue after the rain subsides." As they spoke, they spotted Wang Lin standing there and stopped. They exchanged glances and silently walked towards the temple. As they passed by Wang Lin, one of them gently raised his right hand and struck towards him. Immediately, the person beside him let out a small shout, then subtly deflected the attack with a push. The man turned his head, snorted softly, and then silently entered the temple. After entering, the 5 men took off their cloaks and lit a fire. Having done so, they took out some food and ate while chatting. However, their eyes occasionally glanced towards Wang Lin. Wang Lin shook his head slightly. These 5 ordinary people had unexpectedly disrupted the atmosphere of the rain, shattering the peaceful mood. He sighed softly, then lifted his foot, intending to leave. Suddenly, Wang Lin was startled, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains and forests. A burly man in white robes was approaching. His steps weren't fast, but Wang Lin could sense the power of the shrinking ground into inches technique. In an instant, he passed Wang Lin and entered the temple. As he passed Wang Lin, the man let out a small gasp and stopped. He glanced at Wang Lin, smiling gently. "I didn't expect to meet someone of the same rank in this small temple. My name is Mo Zi." "And you are?" Wang Lin's gaze remained calm, but a hint of wariness crept into his heart. This man was truly somewhat strange. At first glance, he seemed like an ordinary person. But how could an ordinary person recognize his identity? Wang Lin calmly clasped his hands and said, "People in the mountains don't have names. Just call me Big Ox." A strange glint appeared in the big man's eyes, mixed with a hint of amusement as he glanced at Wang Lin, smiling and saying, "Brother Big Ox, wouldn't it be better if we sat here and discussed the rain?" Wang Lin chuckled softly, nodded, and sat down cross-legged. He lightly flicked his right hand, took out a wine gourd, and took a sip. After the changes in the 4-sect alliance, Wang Lin hadn't accumulated much fruit wine. The big man laughed heartily, sat down, and said, "Brother Big Ox's cultivation is truly astonishing. If I'm not mistaken, you've already reached the soul-capturing intent realm, a realm reaching the heavens." Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat. His vigilance towards this man deepened. However, his expression remained calm. He only smiled slightly without replying. At this moment, one of the big men sitting by the campfire not far away suddenly let out a mocking laugh. "What nonsense are you two spouting? We don't understand a thing. What's this about soul-stirring imagery? A realm reaching the clouds? Are you two insane?" Mosey smiled and said, "Your word insane is absolutely right. Without madness, it's very difficult to comprehend such things. Without madness, how could anyone seek immortality and contend with heaven?" The burly man sitting by the fire raised his eyebrows and cursed, "Truly insane. I don't understand anything at all." Mosey chuckled, shook his head, and looked at Wang Lin, saying, "Brother Don Yu, do you understand?" Wang Lin's eyes held a hint of amusement as he said, "Your words are full of profound meaning. I don't understand either. But I think using the word insane isn't as good as using the word foolish." Moshi's eyes lit up, and he laughed. "Excellent, the word foolish. Very good. People like us, without a hint of ignorance, obviously cannot achieve enlightenment." Wang Lin took a sip of wine and smiled. Mosey looked at Wang Lin, his eyes suddenly becoming somewhat vacant, empty, and lifeless. Wang Lin was startled by that look. His right hand briefly rested on his storage bag. After a while, Moji's dazed expression gradually disappeared. Where were we just now? Wang Lin raised his eyebrows, staring intently at him. At this moment, several burly men sitting by the campfire not far away, who had been listening to their conversation, burst into laughter, saying, "So he really is a madman." Mozi sighed softly, smiling at Wang Lin. "Well, forgetting is forgetting." "My name is Mozi. May I know your name?" Wang Lin frowned. After a while, he shook his head, chuckled softly, and took another sip of wine, saying, "Big Niu." Mozi nodded, looking at the rain outside and sighing. The beauty of the night rain lies in its imagery. It embodies an unending cycle of life. Even dying plants and flowers drink the rainwater and slowly revive. That is the beauty of the rain, and it is also the essence of human existence. Wang Lin turned to look outside the temple. The howling wind echoed in. Occasionally, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky accompanied by thunder, illuminating the scene outside. The flickering fire in the temple cast a light that alternated between light and darkness, much like the interplay between life and death. The changing light and darkness seemed to contain the essence of life and death. Light is life, and darkness is death. Light and darkness alternate, life and death change. How does life come about? Wang Lin murmured. This question had long troubled him. Mozi turned, pointed to the fire, and smiled, saying, "This fire is life." Wang Lin silently gazed at the flickering fire, asking, "Why?" Mozi smiled, looking at the fire, and replied, "I don't know what life is either, but I often hear people say light a fire, light a fire. That means fire is life." "You're crazy." At this moment, the burly men sitting by the fire looked at Wang Lin and Mozi strangely. They said fire is life. Wang Lin slowly understood, but still didn't quite grasp it. He thought for a moment and then said, "What is death?" Mozi was about to speak when suddenly his eyes showed a bewildered, completely blank expression. After a while, he looked around blankly. "Where were we?" Before Wang Lin could speak, a burly man by the fire said, "He just asked you what death is." Mozi looked apologetic, glancing at Wang Lin. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, "So you already know my name. May I ask your name?" Similarly, without waiting for Wang Lin to speak, a burly man sitting by the fire laughed and said, "His name is Daniu." The apology in Moji's eyes deepened as he said, "Since I understood the heavenly Tao, my memory has occasionally been problematic. Brother Daniu, please forgive me." Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but his heart was shaken. He hesitated for a moment before asking, "What kind of profound meaning have you comprehended, brother?" Directly asking about someone's profound meaning wasn't a good thing, but Mozi didn't mind. The bewilderment in his eyes intensified as he slowly said, "The realm of oblivion." "Hey, you still haven't said what death is." "Continue," a burly man sitting by the fire urged. Moji's eyes remained vacant. He murmured, "What is death?" "Death is dying. If you die, that is death." "If the heart dies, then this death is death." Wang Lin was startled. The other man's words were like a flash of lightning through his mind. It was like a gust of wind dispelling the fog that had obscured the issue of life and death. Death is death. A dead person is dead. But a dead heart is certainly dead. Moji's eyes were completely lifeless. He looked around, his right hand casually pointing to a puddle outside the temple, muttering, "Today, the rainwater falling and forming this puddle represents life. Another day, without rain, this puddle represents death. Without life force, without flow, it is dead water." Then, his right hand pointed towards the burly men sitting by the fire. His eyes became even more vacant, muttering, "Right now, they may be happy yet angry, miserable yet joyful, that is life. Another day, they will no longer experience joy, sorrow, or anger, unable to escape the cycle of reincarnation that is death." His right hand suddenly moved, pointing to the lotus platform inside the temple, and he continued, "As long as the statue of the god is still in the temple is alive. But today, with the statue gone, the temple is as good as dead." Saying this, he stood up and pointed to the sky, saying, "This rain is born from the sky, then falls to the earth and dies. The moment between them is life. I look at the raindrops, not the sky. I look, yet I don't see. I don't see the rain itself, but I want to know if it's the rain from when it was alive." Wang Lin's expression changed. He stood up and bowed deeply to Mosey. Mosey smiled and left the temple. His speed was incredibly fast, disappearing in an instant. But his voice still echoed in the air. Brother Don knew. Whether you understand or not, you understand. Make your own arrangements. Wang Lin stared at the raindrops in astonishment. After a moment, he smiled. At this point, the several burly men sitting by the fire were all bewildered. They could hear a little of what had happened, but upon closer reflection, they understood nothing at all. Brother, what did that person mean just now? One of them couldn't help but ask. The others also looked towards Wang Lin. Wang Lin smiled, shook his head, and said, "You wouldn't understand." As he spoke, he stepped out of the temple. He walked in the rain, his face turned towards the sky. This rain was born from the heavens. He then looked down at the ground. That rain fell to the ground and died. The time between those moments was the rain when it was alive.